stream. Try to save some of those questions. Some of my fellow colleagues are also streaming. If you have questions on there, they'll drop it in the live chat. They'll get it on over to us as we move forward. As you can see, we got a whole host of individuals, everything from big to small, pools and more. I got a few comments from the devs. Tim Biko and Micah couldn't make it because of their time location, but we might insert some comments there. But right now, I'm not sure if you guys check this out. There is a website that I put in the live chat for Zoom callers called bortle.wtf. I'm going to put that in the live chat as well. And if you go to that website, that kind of gives us the timeline of what we're looking at right now. The Ethereum merge is looking around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, September 15th still, unless there's a dramatic increase in hash rate or otherwise. If you look at the website, I'll pull it over here on my screen. You can see the kind of the time frame that it sits, and I shared it with everybody, not only in the Zoom call, but also through the document. And of course, there's a bunch of pandas at the bottom here, thanks to Tim Biko. Always love that. But we're still on track for the merge. It's going to happen. It's going to impact a lot of us. So let's talk about it, guys. First thing on the agenda is the timeline, the ETH merge speculation on why, and a few more thoughts. So it looks like the soft date of September 15th is still holding true. What are your thoughts on the timeline? And I open it up to the floor. Try not to talk over each other. And let's keep it respectful. No hits below the belt. And we'll be good to go, baby.
So I am curious for the group. I was going to say, I'm curious for the group. Yeah. So I'm wondering what you guys are finding as the best source of truth here on the timeline. The reason I asked that is because I've seen 3 different sources. Now I know everything's based off block time, which is, you know, our main thing there. But is there any source that you guys are finding that is more accurate than another? I know somebody had linked like watcher.guru for the ETH merge. There's the Ween merge one, which seemed to be actually conflicting. So I thought I'd ask the group, for the viewers especially, what are you guys finding the best source of truth in this situation?
I've been using Ween merge. Yeah.
I haven't really found anything too accurate, but when merge, that's the one with the difficulty bomb picture, isn't it? I believe that just goes based on difficulty bomb, and the merge is not going to happen with the bomb timeline. It's happening earlier.
Correct.
I can't even.
So, guy, here, this is Carter. So the reason why you're not seeing it on all of the different sources is it's whenever they're taking the quick snapshot on their database of what the current difficulty versus the terminal difficulty is. So if like Google takes a snapshot in their database of where it's at, they're going to start reporting it. And then somebody else does it maybe an hour and a half later, but hash rate has changed because hash rate comes off and on. So they're all getting a different current difficulty. So they're readjusting that timeline. So you're going to see, unless everybody was all taking their exact same snapshot at the exact same time, you would see kind of more succinctness of when that timeline is. But since it is on that TDD, it is calculating it when you take the snapshot. So like of what current difficulty is versus where it's at in the terminal difficulties. So I don't think there's any right answer to it. I think it's going to happen, and it's going to get, it's like a tunnel that's getting closer. So when it's really close, we're going to get a lot more finite exact number. I would say probably when it's about 17 to 15 hours away, it's going to be probably lockstep, provided like a whole bunch of miners just don't turn off or something and throw it off. But not saying anybody should do that or anything, but it's just, it's going to be pretty succinct, you know, if it holds at 871 terahash. So that's just, I'm just trying to throw out there the high probability of why you're seeing different on different sources.
Yeah. And by the way, Bortle.wtf was provided to me by the devs. And that was just updated right before the meeting at 2200 hours, 2229. But yeah, it's not going to be 100% exact until we get closer to the time.
They scheduled something on the Ethereum Foundation YouTube for the merge watch party on September 15th at 1 a.m.
Okay, so it's going to be overnight.
Something that the devs did schedule out. Now that could mean nothing. It was kind of a weird thing that they scheduled that video out, but something to note, right?
Indeed. So, I mean, September 15th is still looking like the date, whether it's at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, or 8, 9 o'clock in the morning for the East Coast or Eastern Standard Time. Obviously that changes based upon your location, but we'll get more information as we get a more finite detail as Mike said as we get closer. So
is that still tentative, or it's pretty much set in stone?
Well, it's not set in stone yet. That's what BBT was just saying. Is we can't. Everybody's got different times and different dates, adjusting for the difficulty until we get closer, which we're 5 days off. So I say the 13th, 14th, we should start to see when it's actually going to happen and have a more definitive answer.
Yeah, the event is set in stone. The TDD is set on the network. It's just when it kicks off, when we actually reach that point is the question.
Got it.
Yeah, around hash rate.
There's a few days.
The deciding factor.
There's a few days where it can go on and on, right?
If a whole bunch of hash rate started to come off, it would slow it down, and we would push past the 15th.
It's the long inevitable, guys. Everybody shut off their rigs.
All right, it's a good idea.
Do a reverse panda mining, right?
That's a conspiracy. No.
Okay, you guys start. I'll follow suit.
Yeah, right. You first.
Hash rate migration. We did a test, but not everybody joined the party on that one, so we didn't get a lot of data off of that. I want to move the conversation on, but it sounded like Brian had something to say. Brian, Nemesis, you were going to add something?
Oh, I was sitting there just agreeing with Carter with all the data that I've been watching as we've been getting closer. It seems like they went from like a 3 to a 4 day spread. And now they're within I think 17 hours of agreement on everything that I've been seeing as we've been getting closer. And yeah, as we get even closer, it'll finite out because as Carter was saying, it's snapshots all over the place.
Yeah, but when merge,
it could speed up too if we start seeing a big pump in price, right? Because a lot of people start turning back on to try to get that last bid. I mean, if ETH pushes, and then everybody starts buying the news, and next thing you know, you see $2,000 ETH in the next 24 hours. People will start turning back on their rigs, and then it's going to increase hash rate. It's going to make it faster, so it could happen quicker.
All right, so slow it down. That's the idea, right? Slow it down. All right, cool. We're all gonna slow down. Everybody, turn off in 3, 2, 1.
What? None it.
Well, even if all the GPU miners turned off, remember there's a lot of ASICs on the network, and we'll be interested to see how that spreads out amongst the network. But we'll get into more detail about that. Now, the second item I have on the sheet here is been covered extensively by each and every one of these content creators' channels. But we're going to try to see if we can summarize it in a collective effort. What does the ETH merge mean? And BBT, if you can lead on this one, and Seth, mind your biz. What does the ETH merge mean? Because you did a video on it. And what does it not do? We had a link here where we were kind of not disproving, but kind of correcting and resetting expectations for people. Again, fees were not going to be reduced, so on and so forth. And you cover that. So I'll let you go ahead and take the lead on what the ETH merger means and what it
does. I mean,
not
I'll do it quick because we got a lot of people here that we can jump in. But at the end of the day, it's just a change in consensus. So the first part of this is their first phase. So essentially ETH1's chain continues on. It's like all the smart contracts, all the chain data, all the history continues on ETH1. It's just now going to start to inherit its security from Beacon. So at one point, it's going to, when it hits that transition, it's going to just start inheriting the consensus from Beacon. That's going to take some time to finalize. So it's not going to, this is the part that isn't super clear. There's some words on paper out there, but I think everybody's going to kind of sit and wait from at least the production, ETH being the core platform, because all the other test nets didn't have all the level of fidelity of the smart contracts and stuff. So I think there's still a lot of question of how long is it going to take to get final? Is it going to just happen? Will it take 5 to 8 minutes like some of the other test nets took until it finally got to finalization, and then you start seeing blocks happen? Are we going to have some small reorgs right away? So I think what's going to happen is everybody's going to, any high liquidity center is going to freeze everything, just for everybody's quote unquote safety, because they don't want people getting transactions reversed, nor does anybody want to have to deal with somebody losing coin, quote unquote, because they will send something and then it has a reorg, and then that's like an Etch sketch and it never happens. So I think right at time of the merge, we're going to see the fact that first block's going to come in, and then that ETH1 is going to inherit the consensus from that. And then we're going to wait for Beacon to show that it's finalized. And then you're going to have a point probably 20 minutes past that everybody's going to be like, okay, I think it's right. Everything's going good. And this is when, are there any 0 days out there? Somebody's been holding, waiting for this moment. Or, all that kind of stuff's going to happen. So no core code and smart contracts are changing. It's all staying on ETH1. So it's just now we're going to have two networks kind of running succinctly, where one is just inheriting the consensus of another. So unlike other proof of stake networks where it's like one chain and it's the proof of stake node is running everything succinctly, you're effectively having two nodes run on the same box. If you're a validator node and then just an information node that has the original chain, and they're just talking to each other. So that's all that's quote unquote happening. Fees are not going to go down. Ironically, I don't think anybody's announced that they're going to do an NFT drop or something that's just going to hit the network really hard. I know that a ceremonial event is being captured by everybody, and they want to christen something, but it would be interesting if somebody tries to do an NFT drop at that moment in time, and then now you have this a huge amount of stuff. But it's going to be interesting. But yeah, there's a whole misconception video. I know multiple people have covered it, but that's all that's happening so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you get to that question just a minute here, just to add something that might be helpful to anybody who's uninitiated or hasn't been tracking it on those expectations. And obviously, BBT Carter did a really good job of going over what to expect from the merge itself. But some platforms, if you have your Ethereum locked up on a platform and you're not sure whether or not it's going to be liquid for you, then do what you have to do sooner than later. Aave, Curve, a lot of the other protocols that are, they're at least mostly decentralized, or maybe just decentralized in name only. Some of them, they are going to lock up your funds. So leading up to that, and then it'll be for an indeterminate amount of time after that, because they want to make sure that, like Carter said, if there are any 0 days, they're not liable for your losses. So just wanted to fit that in before we move on. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry, blind run.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Maybe Carter can answer this, or any one of y'all are welcome to answer it. But there's a huge claim that basically post merge, Ethereum becomes deflationary. A lot of that appears to be around the inability to unstake, or at least a portion of that is. But then there's still a claim that outside of that, it becomes deflationary. Is anybody familiar with why that would be the case?
Yeah, I'll take a quick swing at it. So the emission rate goes way, way down. So right now the emission rate is 2 coins every block on the proof of work side. It's going to go significantly lower than that. And essentially you have the emission that current Beacon has just being the only new added coin. And then all of the fees for activity still works the exact same. So right now, if we look at every block, and you might see during not so much so lately, because there hasn't been a whole bunch of NFT drops and stuff, but on the days that it's real busy, you'll see maybe 4 or 5 Ethereum in a block, and most all of it's burned, right? The EIP 1559 wipes out most of it. You'll see a 2.1 ETH block maybe every once in a while. Most of the time it's 2.06 or something like that, right? 1559 wiped out pretty much most of all the fees, unless you have something that's like a crazy NFTD or day, and then you'll get those 90 arbitrage, 90 ETH blocks where maybe 60's burned, and then you have another 90 that's distributed because the priority fee was the main part that was being done because people wanted to be in front, so they were just overpaying, and we get those nice big chunky blocks. That can still happen now in proof of stake. It's just going to go to the nodes, but that stuff still sits on ETH, quote unquote, one network, not Beacon. So it's going to be burning all this excess ETH without that 2 ETH inflation. So only those time periods where you have that spike and you have a lot of burning, it's quote unquote deflationary there. But the average blocks that are sitting there at 2.5, 2.7, 0.7 is getting burned, and we're no longer getting 2 in the inflation side. So now it's just going to be going south, and it's going to be deflationary. It's one of those things where I think the game theory isn't, it sounds great and it's a great soundbite, but over the long tail, eventually you kind of freeze up the chain, like a consistent burn. It's going to burn it to 0 over a long period. So you're going to have all these charts going well, how long until it's out, or until it makes it to where you shouldn't use ETH anymore. So it's kind of you know, they're at some point going to have to address it. Maybe it's 10 years from now, whatever. But like if you burn too much, then people will stop using it. So, and it just becomes like a store of value because now you're in that claim. So it will happen right away for a bit.
Well, actually, I want to add on to that. So from what I understand and from articles I read, and maybe you guys can verify this, that ETH 2.0 stakers and anybody from that point forward, for 6 months, they can't unlock any of their rewards or any of their ETH. And not just that, in addition, even when the 6 months come, they can only take it maybe in tranches. Is that accurate?
We don't know. We know that upon the merge that withdrawals will not be enabled initially. And then 6 months is never a time that they've actually announced. It could be 6 years, right? They haven't actually said when they will unlock withdrawals.
They just guaranteed that it would happen by Shanghai.
Which is
the next fork.
Right.
Next fork. That's the answer.
The fork.
Yeah, they're arguing over that right now too.
Yeah. So would that not make it kind of like per se deflationary or more scarce as some of those tokens cannot be extracted?
Correct. That's part of the that's something that it's an artificial deflationary thing, right? Because technically that Ethereum is there, but nobody can access it, right?
Well,
it's
it would establish a ground floor, wouldn't it? I mean, if you think about it, they're trying to establish a baseline for it can't go below this.
I mean, that kind of works, but tokenomic lockups, they've been done on a lot of other chains, and they don't always go the way that the steering committee hopes that it'll go. Like, all that means is that if your funds are locked up, you get to like sit on the sidelines helplessly while price goes down and you're not liquid to do anything about it.
Yep.
So it's no stop loss for you.
Yeah, that's kind of where the ST ETH came in, right? So for Lido heard the pressure from people, you know, mind you, when people started locking up in the early 21, or actually late 20, right? It's 20 because it's been over a year. When you could start to lock up ETH, it was like, hey, we're probably 6 months away from the merge, maybe 7. Go ahead and lock your ETH up. Well, now people have been sitting on this for like 18 months, and they're just like, what the heck? So, flashback, right around EIP 1559 time, they created another token on ETH called ST ETH, which is staked ETH, and it's a 1-to-1 redeemable amount of your staked ETH on Lido. And what happened is during like the Luna crash, it ended up going lower. It depegged, right? So like you could buy ST ETH for cheaper than what ETH was falling at. And it's still, I think right now, a little depegged. I haven't looked at it today, but it's not the exact same price. It was like 0.97 it was 97% of the price. It came close to back up. But I always looked at that as like a futures price of the unlocking of ETH. Because what that's saying is that if I'm holding that, at some point I'll be able to redeem it for real ETH. And if it's lower than it, then there's, it's not as optimistic, right? That the price is going to be higher than what I have it at right now. It's going to be lower when it gets unlocked. So you can think of it like a futures price almost, but it gives it to where you can have some liquidity on staked ETH, but you're getting it through like this kind of other instrument, right? And you're giving up your rights to whatever node on Lido, because at the end of the day, Lido doesn't care because it's locked and you can't move it anyway. So they don't care who owns it. What they care is at the time when you go to redeem it or when it gets unlocked is when it matters. And that's when they'll reconcile that, right? So whatever outstanding ST ETH is, they'll reconcile it when it gets unlocked. I've always had that kind of argument that if you're in a very deflationary series of events where, let's say the merge goes okay, ETH pumps hard, but you have a lot of ETH still locked up, there's a disincentive for the developers to release that next hard fork, because they're like, well, wait a minute here. How do we release it? Is it going to be, you can only take 15% out right away if you depeg it, or if you unhook, spin it down, because it's not going to be ever instant. None of these proof of stake nodes are ever instant, right? You got to power it down. It's got to wait. It's got to unlock. It's got to make sure that it's not part of the epoch acceptation of like you are next to be a validator. It's got to validate all that. And then it opens, and then you can have access to your ETH. So I haven't seen anything published. I would love to see it of how they're going to do that. They haven't they haven't published the specification on how the unlock's even going to work. So 6 months, I think, is not like, there's no way unless they're doing it not in the open, and then they publish it and say, hey, we've already figured it out. Here's what it's going to happen. And it's 6 months. I would say when we see a published specification, then maybe 6 months after that, maybe a year after that, then it gets unlocked, right? But we got to see how they're going to unlock it first, right? But until then, anybody that has staked ETH, and I think even Coinbase recently just said they would make it liquid post ETH merge on the people that have staked stuff there to kind of compete with Lido, right? So if you do stake, you get this other token that you could sell if you need out of it.
Yeah,
right?
and Carter, that's a bit of
kind of cover down.
Yeah, a bit of an issue there
Binance,
with both
OG
Coinbase and a few others as well. Sorry, Mikkel, you go ahead.
No, it's like Binance Original is doing the same thing. They're looking at operating the same situation of if you've been staking ETH on their platform, they'll allow you to pull it after the merge.
But the liquidity pool balance is terrible.
And beyond that, speaking of liquidity pool balances, not being transparent, you know who else did some staking and offered a synthetic derivative? Celsius, just before the end, right? Like we don't have that kind of transparency. Carter, I'm glad you brought it up, but I mean, you're very fair-minded about like them publishing the way that they're going to do this, but I don't know that we're going to get that from a lot of the more centralized platforms that are holding on to it.
I just looked up Lido. It's $50 cheaper than ETH.
Yeah, it's not one-to-one peg.
No.
So if you're a big believer in it, and you could actually have a $50 arbitrage right now compared to what prices are right now. But again, it's when it unlocks. If it's at $900, you just took the 17 whatever to 900 drop.
Actually, I think there's actually a bigger one as far as Bitcoin. As far as with not Grayscale, what's the other one? They also have the funds that they're like bigger arbitrage. Is that correct?
Yeah, but who really believes that they're even going to be a 6 month or a 1 year, even a 2 year? Like based off their track record right now, I think most of you have been around this block a few times and no one is holding their breath. Unfortunately, I have a few people who have reached out to me, close friends on ETH staking, and I just told them, hey, you're in it for the long run, brother. Like it could be, they're asking for timelines. It's like, throw it out for 3 years and hope for the best. I mean, and granted, I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but it's like, don't expect 6 months to a year. I mean, based off what we've seen the last 3 years, unless someone sees something differently.
The incentive structure, though, is the problem, right? Like as soon as they unlock that, there's no incentive for these stakers to hold it anymore, and so you lose all your security.
Right. And I would have a question at that. I would have a question at that point, because like I'm sure they would have some kind of fail safe to stop a mass exodus.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he said
like, what does that mean for?
That's the rollout that they're going to be doing, right? You're only going to be able to release a certain percentage of your staked ETH, and anybody who's staked ETH, they have 32 staked ETH, so they got a ton of money anyways. Most of them are in for a long run. They're not there to make a quick cash grab, and it's already down 50% anyways. So,
oh my God, yeah.
You know, they're going to be waiting. They don't care. They already staked 32 ETH. Like they got money. They don't. We're
not talking about the smart money. We're talking about the ones.
But I'm just saying that they're not going to allow it to come out in like big lumps, because that's going to modify the market too much. And as soon as it starts dipping, then other people start seeing it. And if they're allowed to take 100% out, then it's just going to be a tankathon. So I mean, it makes sense, and I think they're going to, you know, obviously release however much they're allowed to take out at that point, but. I mean, it makes sense from a business perspective.
Yeah, they're going to protect against the bank run.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. What was the price of Ethereum originally, though? Like BBT said, end of 2020 or so is when they needed the first X amount of ETH before they even launched that beacon chain. That was only like $500-$600 ETH or something at that point. So people, when they can release it, could take massive profits, and don't blame them for doing that.
Well, yeah. So when they started opening that was like December of 2020, right? Because our first big push was 21, and it was around $700 ETH, and that's what kind of pushed it up to around $900 ETH price, and we started having to push into 21. You know, with the bull market took off right a little bit after that, and then all these people had their locked ETH, and it pumped all the way up to 4,000 around EIP 1559. And then nobody could get it out, right? There was like, it went from, they started staking at 900, it went to 4,000. They're like, I shouldn't have staked. I could have, taken some off the table. And then Lido made an answer by saying, well, you will create this thing EST ETH, and that gives you some liquidity. We're just going to redeem it at the time of this thing comes unlocked.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a derivative. It's not like a reapplication because supposedly there's a one-to-one match to it.
It's gonna be on chain.
So they've only minted what they have.
Prove it on chain. That's the only way I believe it's not a synthetic derivative. It has to. You have to see it on chain.
Yeah, and I think they have I haven't seen it in a while, but I think when they created that, I do remember research. I do remember looking at it and seeing a dashboard and seeing what's clicking the contract address and then seeing what they have staked in Beacon was matching what they had created. And then they would be making sure that there was a one-to-one there. So I think that's there. It's just, again, like the risk was, is it going to stay pegged and it depegged, right? So like it's less now. So if you own staked ETH, you're $50 less than what ETH is right now, right? So it is worth less right now in this moment. And then at the time that you go to redeem it, they're going to hand over essentially you if you have a node, like you have that real ETH, right? So we'll see. I mean, it's when is that going to happen, and that kind of thing is kind of the next question for the ETH holders.
So in summary, if you have stake ETH, it's going to be a hot minute, and what we're really looking for is more clarity around the Shanghai fork. Correct. The Shanghai fork, we should probably hear some more clarity from the dev team about when they're planning on rolling out the unlocks, how it's going to work, all that stuff. But if you got staked ETH, you're pretty much stuck in there for a hot minute.
And it's staked ETH plus the emission that is on Beacon, which right now is not calculated in the total supply. That's a funny thing too, but it's the emissions that have been awarded on Beacon are not part of the coin market cap total ETH supply. So it's actually going to bump up when they unlock, because now you're going to have all this other ETH. And then when proof of stake takes over with this merge, all of the fee side of it isn't getting locked up, right? It's like you're getting the emission on Beacon for your node. And then if your node is the winner to be the validator for a particular block, and let's say that lucky guy gets 14 ETH on that block because it's a busy day on the NFT world, that fee will stay on the ETH1 side, right? So then they're going to have essentially their wallet connected, and they're going to get paid out that block, just the priority fee. So they're paid out on ETH1 side of it, which I would love to talk with Micah and them on how like that is from a security aspect, because now am I exposing the private key where typically a validator with 32, and now I'm going to be getting this other ETH in this ETH1 side. Am I putting myself at a risk for both sides that somebody could then compromise that key at some point? Because now I'm having to expose it because I want those fees, right? And like if you get paid a 14 block, I'm just making 14 ETH block up, but we know that we've all seen a block that could be that plus more 100 ETH. If you are the lucky guy that got selected and you're not as part of a pooled node setup where it's just you own it, it's your 32 ETH, you're hosting it, you're selected to be a validator. Those are predetermined, right? We go to a deterministic system versus a random system when we go to proof of stake. So you find out on the next epoch, you are one of the validators. You're like, woohoo, I'm getting this. Well, then you get a big block. That might be more than you would ever dream to ever earn on your ETH node, because you were the winner of that one block. And you're going to get those 14 ETH in one payout, just like if you were solo mining. So it's an interesting set of circumstances. And this is why all the ETH validators are freaking out ready for this proof of stake, because they're essentially getting the benefit that we do right now as miners, that if a big block happens, they get all the fees. One person does, though, not like they're a pooled setup, unless you're like Rocket Pool, which they're trying to do the split of the proceeds.
Is it not just an RPC client between the consensus and the execution layer nodes?
Correct. They're just talking locally. Yep.
Right.
Actually, I want to mention something on Rocket Pool. So I saw somebody write an article, actually a video, on how, it's easy to run an ETH node on a Raspberry Pi for less than $80 and blah, 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 blah. But who the hell is going to have, the little guy, 32 ETH? And then if you put it on Rocket Pool, you're putting it in somebody else's wallet. That's, like I say, not your keys, not your cheese. Why would they say something like that to forward their, their agenda to say, listen, ETH 2.0 is for the little. That is not true. Fine, $80 for Raspberry Pi, but who the hell, let's be honest, anybody, one arm's length transaction or two has 32 ETH. Who?
Well, not too many people have 32 ETH. That's true. The little guy doesn't have 32 ETH, but you can participate without having any ETH, which was another misconception that Carter talked about in one of his videos. But obviously, if you're not a validator, you're not going to earn any rewards by validating that block. But you don't need to have the 32 ETH in order to participate in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, Rocket Pool, you could go and do it with 0.2 ETH, 0.1 ETH.
But you have to transfer the ETH. Is that correct?
It's like a fractional ownership. They'll pay you a fractional amount of that yield.
But it's not part of their thing. But it's not in your wallet.
Well, no, it'll go. So you're going to get the emission on Rocket Pool. The question's outstanding on how you're going to get your fee side of that, right? Because I don't think they even have a fact of how they're going to handle the fees. So, like, let's say there's 800 nodes on Rocket Pool. You become part of one. Let's say 1/16 of one, and when they go to do their distribution, the questions out there is on your MetaMask. If that's the one that you use, your local MetaMask that you have maybe on your browser, and you're like, I got 0.1 ETH in there, YOLO, I'll put it on Rocket Pool. Is your fee side of that share pool going to go into your current MetaMask or not? Like, I put that question out there. I think this is why I think a conversation with the developers, maybe Rocket Pool, I had them on, I don't know, 4 months ago or so, having them back on, like, hey, how are you guys going to handle the fee side? Because if we're going to get a trickle on Rocket Pool's validations, then that's interesting. And maybe I put 0.5 in there, or put a 1 ETH in there just to get a little yield. If you guys win some big blocks, we'll start to get yield in that way. But it's not fully clear on how they're going to do that. And it's been real, I think they're still trying to figure some of that out.
Is all these fees, these rewards from the fees, are they, like, is that current? Like, is it hidden? Is it hidden to these node operators? Like, they don't even know?
No, so they'll see them. I mean, they're going to be paid. They're going to be selected, and essentially they are selected to produce a block. So you have two types of nodes. You have like your information node, and then you have a validator. Validator means that you have 32 ETH locked. You have stake. You are selected to create and mint a block, right? To mint the consensus of that block. So then when you take the priority fee and all that, like we do right now as miners, they're going to do that activity. So then they're going to get paid the priority fee. Anything else that's not burned, that part's going to go to you on the ETH1 quote unquote side. So it's immediately accessible. That was to prevent, because we're talking two networks, right? You have Beacon as like its own blockchain, right? And it's creating emission from ETH on its own. So for them to they would be taking supply out of ETH1 side and reminting it on the ETH2 side if they didn't pay those fees, because mind you, that's just like random people paying for their NFTs or whatever.
Right.
And then those are included as their transaction cost. They're just redistributing that and keeping that on the ETH1 side. So you're going to be paid those as a validator.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that known to the operators?
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
But is the validators random or round robin?
It's random on the epoch selection, but once the epoch is created, which is just a timeline of X amount of validators, like they're then predetermined. So then all the validators coming up through an epoch, and then a new epoch is created randomly, and then it's redone.
So it is random. Okay, got it.
So speaking of fees, to keep the conversation moving along, how about that MEV and flashbots and sandwich trading?
That's the $1 billion question.
Proof of stake.
Oh man,
it's the $1 billion question. There's so much being made right now, currently by and allegedly being made by parties unknown, right? Like we've been told that it was miner extractable value, but then there were pool operators, and then there were third parties saying, nope, we're sandwiching these transactions totally independently. We don't have to mine. We're not even we're not using proof of work in order to exploit MEV. So like I suspect we're going to see that the incentive is there, and it's not going to go away with the beacon chain merge. So I suspect we're going to see blocks and payouts inflated, maybe not back to their previous all-time highs, right, with MEV and flash bots, but significantly. I like personally, I don't know, just my gut is telling me we're going to see really high block rewards for a while as they try to figure out how far they can push that. But I don't know the specifics.
Especially when NFTs start to pop off. And I was actually hanging out with Michael when we saw some extravagant numbers going through with block rewards and which pool or address, even some lucky wallet address holders won a block and got to reap all those rewards. So I'd be interested to see how that happens after the merge. But what about the attack vectors that were talked about, some of the security concerns with MEV after the merge?
They put a switch in to turn it off, remember? If 5 agree, they shut down and you can't perform the MEV.
Simple switch.
Yeah.
They were like, we're just going to put a switch in there.
Okay,
That's the last I heard on it.
Okay, so we're taking for granted then that the incentive to leverage that, the incentive to follow that exploit isn't greater than their incentive to flip the switch.
Well, here's the incentive to flip the switch. If you're a bad actor, you get 5 people to misread it and flip the switch, and then you perform all the MEV on your side and take advantage of it. That's currently the attack vector going on, right?
Right. So my point is so what you're saying, Blind Run here is that the attack surface still exists. We haven't thought through the game theory deeply enough to get past the point that's okay. Well, now we have a competitive bludgeon against people who we don't like. So now we can collude to continue to do the same thing while also virtue signaling it, having protected the network. It's devious. I mean, it's
they're going to use sanctioning
brilliant
to turn it off too.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of business regulation where it's almost always like the white collar crime. You never read about it because white collar crime doesn't exist. It's just a cost of doing business. So it's just like we're raising the level, right? Raising the level at which you have to be able to operate in order to get away with it, so to speak. That's just really funny.
I mean, it's real life PvP in digital form, right? So I mean, that's effectively what's going on is. It's an order of magnitude more complex because now with proof of stake, because now you have a deterministic epoch. So now you could have certain providers or validators that know that they're coming up that solicit, potential arbitrage opportunists, to wait for me because I know in 5 blocks I'm your guy, right? Like right now we don't know. It's a probability equation based on your hash rate of the pool. That if you have 36%, you may get 36% of it over 1,000 blocks if it stays at that level. Well, now you're going to have a determined amount of validators, and if you have a lot of them setting in one of these larger I would call it super pools like Lido or one of those, are they like a megacorp that put stake with us? We're the most efficient because we're good at this, right? The game theory is interesting. It's kind of I don't want to call the ETH core devs a victim of circumstance on that. I think this is a game theory thing that's existed prior to cryptocurrencies, right? When it comes to just order sort transaction fee things. And I think it's going to get a lot more complex, and it's going to be interesting to see who shakes that out. And it's not just ETH. Like every transaction network could have this issue. Like if it had enough scale and size and volume, and complexities. I mean, it's like a computer science problem that needs to be figured out.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm characterizing it as like before they could call it miner extracted value, they could characterize it as blue collar crime, but now they can't anymore. It's like you're saying, it's somebody who has to have they have to have the know-how and the resources to be able to execute it at a much higher level. So it is this white collar crime on, so-called in injecting value into blocks that wasn't there, or stuffing blocks with more reward.
There are going to be some actors and players that I'm aware of that are going to be using poison pills to mess with people's sandwiches, trade sandwiches, or MEVs. So I'm very interested to see how that turns out. So, okay. All right. I just wanted to know. I didn't know about the switch. Apparently there's a switch. I'm poorly educated in the situation, which is why all these wonderful people are here to educate us and inform us. Moving on, let's talk to the pools real quick. We got 2 pools in here. We got Hive on and Flex. What's going on with the pool side of things as far as, leading up to the merge and after the merge? What's the game plan? Let's start with Hive on pool, if anybody wants to give us some details.
Yeah, sure. So for now, we've just launched our Raven coin pool a couple of days ago. It's been going well. We've already hit 3rd in the statics. And after that, we're going to go ahead and launch an Ergo pool and a BTC pool as well. So getting ready for that.
Okay. And I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be diversifying their mining portfolio, which is something that I often advocate for. And Flex Pool, anything popping off with you guys as far as the merge goes in preparation for and after?
Well, we did the math. It's depressing. So what we've mostly focused on is ETC and our Chia. With ETC, we recently introduced ZIL, so that gives you like a 10 or 20% boost on your ETC mining right now. Probably when all the hash rate moves over, it's going to be more than 20%. So I mean, in the end, we're focused on ETC. We might do Ergo. We've been looking at it. It's, how do you say it? Before it didn't look worth it, but it just shot up like 40 or 50%. So now it's getting to the point where it might be doable. And of course we do Chia, and Chia is close to ETC in issuance. So at least it's better than the other coins.
And we were supposed to have Ergo on the call. I'm not sure if they made it. I'm gonna check my.
We do CW. Yeah, he should
Yeah,
be here.
CW here.
Yeah, he's here.
Shout out to CW.
How are
Yeah,
we, guys?
thank
He's right next to me, at least on my screen.
CW, you have any
I do have a-
words?
Just in regards to listings and
Ergo.
bits and pieces like that for the pools. It's proof of work's an interesting sort of concept in that respect, because ultimately we all know what's going to happen in regards to sort of what happens post merge with the influx of hash rate across everywhere. So obviously sort of everyone needs to hedge their bets across there. BBT or Carter, you sort of went into there, and I think you sort of started that conversation around profitability for everything sort of happening post merge. From the Ergo side of things, obviously, we're not here to shill or anything like that. Obviously, we recognize mining's a business, and I think the most opportunity for you guys and providing from the pool perspective is basically having all the options on the table. So just try and cover as much options as possible. I think that's sort of beneficial across the board, because mining's a business. Profitability does jump across different chains and things like that at different times, as we all know. And I think it's up to the blockchain ecosystem as a whole just to be able to provide as much value for miners as possible. I know at Ergo, that's we're really miner centric. We have a number of sort of collaborations going on with Flux at the moment, which is pretty cool. But end of the day, it's about sort of creating as much value for the supply side, which is the mining community. So it's what proof of work's all about. So that's sort of our focus here at Ergo.
So I got a question about the BTC option.
Well said, CW.
Now,
Thank
wondering how does that work if you're just tossing like minuscule amounts of hash rate at it? Because most miners, I mean, if you have a gigahash, it's like not worth even mining BTC. Is there any way that we can make that like actual reasonable, or do you have to still have like tons of basics?
No Bitcoin miners.
Yeah, who was that directed to? I don't think there's many Bitcoin.
Oh, that was directed to Hive. To the Hive on.
You need cheap power.
Yeah.
No, I think the
Sorry,
Hive on
so-
Bitcoin pool is for the ASICs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only for
mainly
ASICs.
the ASICs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a
There's
question. I do have a question for the pools here, for both the pools we have. So love to hear, and I think the viewers would love to hear from the pool side, what is your game plan on the day of the merge? And also, what's your payout distribution going to look like? Are you requiring manual payouts? Or if you're doing automatic payouts, what's your kind of timeline on that? I know that's really varied with a lot of the pools. So with you guys being some of the bigger pools out there, what's your game plan for day one and also for a payout schedule?
We're doing, at least for Hivon, we're doing automatic payouts as low as 0.005 ETH, and manual, depending on what people need and want, for over 20 days after the merge as well. So,
But I have 0.000001 ETH left on there.
Mhm. This is BBT Carter. I got a question. Have you guys thought about doing like a dust conversion? So like if you had a bunch of accounts, I mean, essentially that's still sitting in one of your guys' wallets. And cumulatively, if people were to have an option to convert, even if it's minuscule, over to one of the other tokens that you guys have from a supply side, to where you could just have a button on there. Somebody just goes and converts the dust over to something else. And essentially you guys are taking it from a counterparty side. Is there any options on that, or just, I mean, you don't have to answer right away, but just, it might be an option for people to be able to take another position. Essentially you become a counterparty buying the ETH, and that's a business decision, but it allows you to not have to sit there and creating kind of rent schema, or just have lost quote unquote ETH for people that just couldn't withdraw it. It gives them an option out and gives you the ability to get to that access to that supply that's locked up in the accounts.
yeah, exactly. That's something we've been looking into already from our part. And yeah, I'll be sure to see what the news are on that regard as soon as possible. But yeah,
we need an answer right now. Sorry, I'm just this is important. Look, B. Carter asked you, man. You need to commit.
We got 4 days.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what about on the flex pool side?
For us, I have a really easy answer. Our terms currently don't allow it. To really do crypto conversion gets really complicated legally. I mean, we're talking basically being an exchange, and that would take a lot of work. And I'll be honest, if you have less than $3 in our pool, I mean, sometimes you just gotta let it go.
Hey, now, come on now. But also, what's your game plan for payout schedule? You didn't comment on that.
Well, we already did a post. We're gonna keep our current system. Post merge, if you need to alter your withdrawal settings lower, you can do it with your IP, or you can just contact our support and they'll do it for you. We're probably gonna get overwhelmed for a few days, but we said we'll keep outstanding balances for 3 months. So people can contact us in the 3 months to change their settings. I mean, I feel like that's a good balance, because in the end, we don't want to do an actual payout, because right now every exchange is saying we do not accept this, and if you send it to us, we won't credit you it. So we don't want to actually pay people out before they're ready. So we're letting people figure out when they want to pay out.
And 3 months is very fair, actually.
You need to be planning ahead. If the merge is coming up on the 15th and you're not going to hit that payout threshold until the 16th or 17th because you only have 1,580 or whatever, you need to be thinking ahead and paying attention to this and be like, okay, I'm going to stop mining now. I'm over my minimum payout. I'm going to get my last payment on such and such date or whenever it rolls out, and then move on to the next project or coin if that's the case. But don't leave that ETH stuck in there. It may be $2.50 now, but if you can avoid it, that could be a nice little chunk of change.
And exactly what Serpent's saying, that's exactly why it's difficult to state exactly when the merge is going to happen, because how many people are going to do exactly that? Of they get to their last payout and then it's not worth it after that, and they pull their hash rate, thus changing the time of the merge.
Yeah, and I also want to add, because as you know, pooling happened. I suggest every miner on a shady pool get their money out when they can. Don't be on the next pooling.
I want to point out too, because most of the pools there are PPLNS. So if you plan on getting every cent, you are going to have to shut down early, so all your logs do run down.
Don't worry, we'll make up for you on the network. All right. So moving on. Thank you, Pools, for commenting, Ergo, CW. And forgive me, Hive personnel. How do I pronounce your name correctly?
That's TS. Sorry.
TS. Thank you. Thank you for that. My apologies. I got some messages late in the game, but I appreciate you coming on and Ergo as well. So CW, you're going to be in this discussion a little bit possibly. Because we're going to talk about coins, because everybody keeps asking us 110,000 times, what are we going to mine after the merge? Now, before we answer that, what are your thoughts or the probability of the damn ETH POW coin actually taking place? We already have a perfectly good coin that's doing well on its own called Ethereum Classic, the real Ethereum in my eyes. Why do we need another one? I don't know. But do you think it's possible that we're going to have this new coin actually come off the chain split or whatever? And what are we going to merge after the game? Now, I'm going to start in order on my screen. You can't see it, but Crypto Mikkel, answer this part. What are you going to mine after the merge? A few coins, whatever you got.
After the merge, Flux and ETHW, because I'm a degenerate. So.
We have to be in the business.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
All right. So
I had a question for CW.
Go ahead.
How many blocks? Like, what is the adjustment time of Ergo? Because we know it is slower than a lot of other coins. So that also could play into a strategy of maintaining hash rate right after the merge on Ergo before the difficulty increases, and then obviously you pull off. You could probably hit it again later because it's so slow in adjusting. But how long does it actually change between blocks to adjust that difficulty?
Yeah, it's basically an epoch. So it's about a 1.5 days thereabouts at this stage. And that the delay in the difficulty is basically sort of from the legacy when we had non-outsourceable puzzles. So that basically was when we had restrictions to mining pools, but we had some clever people in our ecosystem who basically bypassed that and created mining pools through smart contracts. So we had to do the Autolycus 2 update. So that's just basically legacy from that time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like you mentioned, this could be sort of some gaming around that. We're not too sure which way that goes, but also what the guys at GetBlock are doing in regards to smart pooling. They're basically trying to bring in the one miner, one vote again, and try and get away from the pool voting that we're kind of currently seeing at the moment. So basically, it's allowing each miner to run a node themselves and then have one vote in the ecosystem. Obviously, Ergo is very proof of work centric. It's very miner centric. So there is a lot of governance that does go on the Ergo chain, which is in the hands of the miners themselves. That's built into the protocol. So where there's been some discussions about altering that delay itself in regards to difficulty adjustment, but we're kind of taking a step back here and just watching and see how the smart pooling plays out and whether we do need to make that adjustment or not.
All right, right on. Sounds good. Yes, I definitely like the ideas of those smart pooling though. Those are awesome.
Does smart pooling affect the difficulty? I don't really understand that, CW.
So in regards to the minor, the non-accessible puzzles, so it's basically around the governance model. So one miner has one vote. The adjustment there basically means that instead of having people come in, jump around the chain and things like that, and that's where we see the difficulty adjustment sort of fluctuate pretty significantly. It's basically putting the hands, the miners back in power with that one vote in regards to sort of how Autolycus 1 was set up. So the difficulty thing, it's basically when we do have voting epochs, it goes over an epoch time. So if people are sitting there mining solo, it's in their interest to have that vote be cast over that amount of period over that epoch.
So, I mean, all you're really saying is it just enables the miners to maybe vote to change the difficulty in the future.
Or how quickly it adjusts in the future.
Yes,
because I'm not. What I was trying to say is, like you had said something about subpooling directly affecting the difficulty or how quickly it adjusts, and I didn't understand how subpooling would affect that.
Yeah, so what the get block guys are actually are building out currently is the ability for the miners to be actually solo mine. So at the moment, your vote is basically being cast by the pool itself. So if people are jumping on and off the pool, then that pool is the single entity that has that one vote. So if with the smart pooling, what they're sort of proposing is giving each of the miners an individual vote instead of just having that larger entity. So if people are voting individually, then that is being cast over a longer time, so a longer epoch. So then they're not going to be jumping across pools like often on Ergo, essentially. So they're going to be keeping their hash rate stable when that in turn affects or doesn't affect difficulty. It doesn't have that impact on the difficulty because they are staying put to have that or to cast their vote themselves.
I guess I understand your reasoning. I don't agree that the incentive of being able to participate within governance would have that great effect, especially if the incentive financially is still to game the difficulty.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. That's arisen. And obviously that can it depends on what the vote is actually. So it could have been controversial in regard to the EIP27 emission update, but also we saw a supermajority there. So obviously it takes, with the Ergo side, with supermajority to pass anything on the chains, 90% of voter votings, a voter hash rate voting in favor of making these proposals pass. In regards to that sort of side of it, it depends on the proposal. Like at the moment, we're voting on the Node 5.0 upgrade, which basically benefits miners by creating more incentives and more clarity in regards to costing model for the blocks and the transactions themselves, or how many transactions fit inside a block. So the governance side of things, like it could be on transaction fees, so that directly affects miners themselves, obviously, and that can, if you're willing to have an individual vote themselves, I think that's empowering each and every miner. I think it's a really good thing for the mining community because we haven't seen that sort of currently in regards to the ETH side of things. It's the dev model that basically runs everything, whereas on Ergo the mindset's flipped and it's basically everything's in the hands of the miner. So it depends on if you want to have an individual vote yourself or let the mining pool as a larger entity cast your vote. That's a personal decision.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Blind Run, I have a feeling there might be a video. You guys got to get together and talk more about that. I'm interested.
Yeah, I can go in more in depth with you guys later if you would like, or I can get a hold of somebody from Ergo. Because I do have some more questions surrounding that, specifically around the difficulty adjustment that I think probably needs to get resolved, especially as more whales are going to be coming on the network with post merge.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's going to be very interesting because, like, in theory, if the difficulty doesn't go up for a day and a half, we hammer it with hash rate, we're going to be gaining a lot more Ergo per day for that day and a half. But now as people, before it adjusts in a day and a half, now as hash rate leave there and people realize what's going on, like myself, sonofatech, other miners, they know how this adjustments affects profitability. You take off, now you got little miners on there getting nothing with that high difficulty.
Well, it's already been happening. That's already been happening a lot. That's been a problem. And now with big whales coming off of Ethereum, it's going to be a bigger problem because these big whales basically have the ability to completely screw everybody else on the network over by coming in, mining for a day and a half, hopping off, moving to another network, then coming back.
And we see that as being an issue with a lower hash rate. So it's basically, we're looking at the bigger picture here also, where we're going to see, or hopefully see, a larger significant constant hash rate where it can't be sort of gamed as much. At the moment, obviously with a relatively small hash rate in terms of like the larger industry itself, where there can be some sort of manipulation there, but we're thinking long term when it could be petra hashes or things like that on the ecosystem itself. So it's an interesting conversation. I'm glad it's been brought up because we're open and transparent and always happy to discuss these sort of topics.
Yeah, definitely need to hear more about that in the future. And right now at the poll, the reason when I went to this question is Ergo is, I out of 167 votes just on my channel, there's 35% voted in favor of Ergo. Flux is in the running at second. Ravencoin and Neoxia kind of got looped into one because they're both on the same ProgPow variant. So that's number 3, and ETC is number 4. My coins, just to stay on topic so we can move through this document, my coins that I'm focusing on, I'm going to focus on after the ETH merge if you're even interested. I know you're really here for BBT and mineyourbiz and blockchain, but it's going to be Ethereum Classic. It's going to be Chia, right, Seth? Am I good with that? It's going to be
with GPUs, yeah.
Oh, Chia in the house, baby. Let's do this. Also, I'm just about to create a file coin.
Across the bow.
So stay
Across the
tuned.
bow.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna stick with ETC Chia. I still have my piddly little helium miners, but Bitcoin behind me is only one of many to come in the future, ASICs. And then moving on, CW, you're gonna be excluded because you represent Ergo. Unfortunately, I can't ask you.
I can't say anything.
Yeah, Tech Shinji. You said you were just gonna be focusing on
What?
tech.
I'm
Are you gonna
innocent.
be mining?
Huh? What?
Are you gonna be mining, and what are you gonna mine? Let's go through the crowd. As quickly as
Yeah,
possible.
probably Raven and whatever coin becomes popular that everyone goes to, because that's the best time to mine when everyone else is doing. Wait, no.
I mean, nobody else is on it. Yeah.
Yes.
Jump change.
I'm gonna go on a risk. Go probably Raven and something obscure.
Raven and something obscure. I'm interested to know more. Let us know. Chump change. What you got?
For me, for heat reasons and electricity, Ergo, and then obviously Flux is going to be, on the more efficient rigs, and then we're going to have Neoxa, a little bit of that.
I see. I knew I was saying it wrong. You know how many people call me out for saying Neoxia? It's like Neoxa.
What's wrong with you, bro?
I've been saying it wrong this
It's all
entire
right. It's
time.
a new coin. We forgive you.
Come on.
Custom computing. After the merge, what are we going to be mining?
I got about 2 gigahash that's being rented out to some guy in Toronto. So he said he's going to be doing, I think, whatever what to mine says, which I'm like, okay, whatever, man, you do whatever you want to do. And then 1.7 gigahash of mine is going to be, I'm going to probably take it down actually for a month, let you guys fucking hash it out, because like it's just going to be a gong show. Let you guys hash it out. I'll clean up all my cards, and then I'll figure out what the next thing is. But I'm also building a Filecoin server. I do have a lot of Chia, but I'm also going to be doing a Filecoin server because I think that's a cool project. And
you're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we have.
I figured.
Why? What did I say? Did I say A or something?
You said Filecoin, and yeah.
Chia and.
That's all you had.
Yeah.
All right.
All we need to is with you, I guess.
So next up is Mr. BBT, who's diversified his mining portfolio. What are you going to be focusing on, boss?
Well, I mean, most of our efforts right now have been around the Bitcoin side. As you guys have probably been tracking on just with our expansion with that. But on the GPU side, we're split between the top 3 right now, which I think are Ravencoin, Flux, and Ergo. ETC, I think, was going to be the big winner on this, but most of the ASICs are going to move over there. I don't have nor have purchased any ETC ASICs. We've had a few sent over from like Ipolo, but I mean I didn't get into any of the jazz miners or anything like that, but I think that most of it just makes sense that all the silicon and all the ASICs are going to go over there. And price model wise, ETC needs to be over $300 to really start to allow GPUs on there. That's assuming 20 to 30% of the 871 terahash that's on Ethereum is ASIC. If it shifts over, it's going to just plummet it. We saw 186 terahash on Ethereum at $86 on March 20th of 2020, right? So it gave us a perspective of if you were a GPU miner, if you could mine. ETC makes a little more percentage because it's not at 2 coin per block, right? But I think the math is very simple on that because it's a lot like Ethereum. So would happily switch over to ETC if it can handle it. But that's going to be really those 3 that we're focused on the GPU side. But yeah, most of the efforts right now, at least through October, is getting the BTC farm up.
Nice. Look forward to the updates on the channel. Keep it coming. The hobbyist miner. What do we got for your coins after the merge?
Yeah, so I've always been big on diversifying. It's been the case for the last few years for me. So I'll be super heavy on Flux and Ergo with BTC in there as well. I'm probably going to continue to build my wallets on Ravencoin, Neoxa, Litecoin, and Doge. I just think it's a smart move, just at least to continue to have those wallets growing. And then a lot of you guys have talked about ETC. I won't be touching ETC with my GPUs, but with my like efficient ASICs that a lot of the guys here have talked about. I'll continue to just let them run. It's a kind of a no-brainer there, but I will not be touching ETC at all with GPUs. I think it's going to be a shit show, to be honest with you. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yep.
Unfortunately. Blind Run, son of a tech. What are we going to be focusing on after the merge?
Caspa. That's it.
Caspa, baby. Caspa. There we go.
Only Caspa.
All right.
Nothing else.
I'm still on Feathercoin. Max voltage. What are you gonna be mining?
Well, the thought right now is, first of all, only mining at night when my power is low, like about 5 cents. But I'll probably be focused on Ergo and Flux. But bottom line is, we all don't know exactly what's going to happen. If everybody goes to Ergo and Flux, it's going to be wildly unprofitable. So we'll have to kind of take a look at that. And one thing I know I won't be doing is I will not be chasing my tail of constantly chasing whatever is on top on what to mine.
Whatever's the most profitable.
It's a work in progress because we all don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
Whatever is the most profitable will be the least profitable.
Yep.
Yeah, in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
Don't
Saying that for
put
years.
no videos out. No, people stop putting videos out.
Right.
When you look at what to mine, like scroll down a little bit. Like those you'll have a better shot of those for a good minute.
Dogecoin.
Switch. Whoever does videos, switch something up.
All right. So Nemesis, Brian, what are you gonna be mining after the merge?
Well, I've already got E3s, so those have been on ETC since the DAG file went above 4 gigabytes. I reprogrammed them, put them onto the ETC hash. That's when everybody was like, "Oh, you can't put any ASICs on there." I was like, "Okay, don't look at me." I'll definitely be continuing that until, if it just gets annihilated, I'll turn them off temporarily until either the hash rate stabilizes out to where it makes sense again for it, and I'll turn them back on. Otherwise, I'll be kind of like drifting a little away from that if that's what it is. I'll be mining my Litecoin stuff. Definitely going to be transitioning more just like kind of BBT over there with the Bitcoin ASICs. It just makes sense from a business standpoint when you're wanting to scale up. As much as I want to stay true to the GPU market and everything like that, it's not going to be my sole focus as it has been for the past few years. But with my GPUs, I'll definitely be putting them onto probably between Flux, Ravencoin, maybe some Ergo. I'm not sure exactly where I'm gonna if I'm just gonna kind of split it up between all of it. But for me, it's whatever. I don't care about dollars. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm looking at what it's gonna earn me the most Satoshis at the end of the day. So
amen, brother.
It's all about the sats.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
So I mean, it's like it's like some people will chase the coins. I'll just look for something that's just steady payout, something that's really steady, something that I can rely on. Let everybody else kind of have the dollar wars. Oh, this one's 0.2 higher. I'm gonna go mine that. And you see hash rate blow over. It's gonna remind me of 2018 when everybody lost their shirts coming off the $20,000 high in 2018. I'm like, here we go again. I'm going to look at everybody else up. First time.
First time.
Back before Ethereum was the most profitable coin,
Oh God, I went to Ethereum Classic and killed it back in the bear market.
And there'd be more good times to come. Right now the market's down, but it's not out. Crypto's here to stay. Blockchain technology is here to stay, and so diversifying is pretty good.
But I think it'll be at least a couple of months before people will kind of figure out what they need to be doing with their game plan. It's like that's what I've been telling everybody on my channel. It's like if you're worried about paying the bills, you might want to temporarily just shut down until everything just kind of levels off. I mean, you're going to have people just going nuts. You're gonna have people in California at 50 cents a kilowatt hour going, "Oh my God, I thought Ethereum was gonna last forever." You know,
just built this entire farm for that too.
Right. Their whole game plan was Ethereum forever and to the moon, and it was like, oh, they had a year and a half to try to recoup what they spent, and it's like their game plan is not going to work in California.
Right. And a lot of people in the EU are paying exorbitant prices, which we'll be getting into a little bit more here in a moment. Crypto Alex, blockchain strategies and mining. What are you going to be looking at? I know you talked about it in Twitter Spaces, but go ahead and give me a quick couple coins that you're going to be focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been an ATC maximalist for a while. I've been mining it since actually when it was like 5 terahash, if you guys remember that. Dude, when that thing hit like 2 terahash, I put everything on that. So, but you know what? ETC, of course, I've been mining that for a while. Actually, I see that the growth is there. I think ETHW has no way it's going to make it. I don't know if you saw my latest tweet that the fees are going to go straight to the wallet. I couldn't believe that. I was like, you know what, that's not for me. And then on top of that, I was like, you know, I just see ETC as one of the best things. Now, going back to Ergo, I've been looking at GetBlock.io. I like what they have to say. I've been looking at that for a little bit. So I'm a little bit interested in that. But, you know, for the most part, I'm going to say ETC. And maybe I'll throw out of my, 13, 14 gigahash that I have, probably about like 1 gigahash. I'll throw it at, FPOW and maybe, actually, if you guys even heard of F Carnival, that's ridiculous. I haven't even seen anybody talk about that. So your thoughts on that?
I haven't even heard of it, unfortunately. But there's so many coins out there that it's a full-time job just to keep up with everything. But I would have to look into it. So DJ Mines, while you're with us, what are you looking into mining after the merge?
Okay, so I'm nearing the end, but listen, these are still my ideas, all right? It's going to sound like familiar. So for me, definitely Ergo and Flux. I love so many things about both of them. They're for the miners. I mean, you're seeing them in smaller YouTube channels. I mean, it doesn't really matter how many views you have. They're supporting proof of work. I like what they're saying. I like what they're doing. And for me, man, it's a great thing. Now, also, I've been kind of somewhat seriously spec mining or saving maybe 5% of my farm for things like, I don't know, Raven or whatever, right? Like something that people aren't really looking at. A lot of people have been looking at Neoxa. So I'm like, oh, this is a good opportunity for Raven. So I've been doing Raven. If everybody starts looking at Raven, I'm going to switch that 5% to something else that people aren't looking at, right? And just try to, not be in competition like a lot of you said. And definitely anything top of what to mine, I'm just kind of like, whoa, let me maybe just kind of wait a little bit. So that's my thoughts.
It's a good strategy. Good strategy. Chili, you've been quiet most of this stream. Any ideas what you're going to be mining?
Yep, just listen because there's a lot of smart people in this room. So for me, I have 2 farms, one at my house, one offsite at another location. My house, I have a flat power rate, so I'm milking that for as long as I can. So I'm gonna be mining Flux with my house rigs in my garage, and then the other rigs I have at the facility, I'll be probably mining Ergo. So both of those projects, definitely kind of same with DJ Mines of just after watching Daniel's video yesterday, also it was just really encouraging and inspiring of just all the stuff they're doing. And then on the Ergo side, just less power consumption for the on-site facility, and then so for myself, I'm not really looking at profitability, more of just utility tokens and kind of just wanting to save my bags and just build them up. So I'm okay with mining in the long term for both projects. So I'm really excited just to see what's going to happen. So that's what I'm doing.
I like to support projects that support the miners. We seem to not get that with Ethereum at the tail end there. It kind of felt like we were being left. But you know, hey, things grow. We got to grow as well. And Mining Chamber, you turn on your camera. Good to see you.
Hi.
Haven't seen you in a hot minute. You got any thoughts for what are you gonna be doing after the merge? What you're gonna be mining?
Yeah, it's been a while. Just now I'm coming back to the mining community full on with videos and new things. But I honestly don't think I'll be profitable when the merge happens. So what I'll do is, depending on profitability, if I am profitable, I'll have things on probably mining Ergo in the summer due to the heat. And then in the winter, I'll probably be mining Flux and so on. I'll definitely avoid ETH just because of who mentioned, I think Crypto Alex. It's definitely a thing where the fees are going to the dev wallet, and the creator is also unknown, so nobody really knows who made it. So it's kind of sketchy. I wouldn't really mess around with it too much. I think it's going to flop, and not many ETH projects will even bother building their things there. Ethereum is working. It's going to work after the merge, and most of the projects will stay there. So
sorry, which coin did you just mention?
ETH.
Oh yeah.
The new Ethereum.
Yeah. Proof of work ETH.
EW. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sketch. It's sketch
Degenerate
AF.
gambling.
Sorry,
It's
continue
really
on,
not even
Chamber.
It's really not
Sorry.
even worth mentioning, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a fork where you can at least get a snapshot of your money from the snapshot, which you can sell them right away, which is one good thing about it. But everybody's probably going to sell it, so it ends up dipping a lot. Other than that, I think Neox is also very attractive. It's still a small cap. You don't know if it's going to succeed or not, but it's a great project, and I like what they're bringing so far. And that's it. From there, maybe CPU mining will become a lot more relevant.
That would be awesome to see. There's been a lot of CPU coins coming out, and I'm really excited to see that because CPU mining hasn't been relevant for quite some years.
Monero great again.
Don't get rabbit mining going. Holy crap.
Oh god.
If I may,
He's already had his turn. No,
if
or did he?
I may interject for a minute, so for those that are looking at Flux for mining, actually I used to own 2 master nodes and a super master node, which is about 70,000 Flux back when it was like 2 cents. And one of the things that Flux that people don't, I mean, I would say a lot of people don't know, especially miners, is that they're airdrops for every time they get a chain on. So every time that BSC and some of these chains got on board, I got these airdrops of Flux. For those that mine Flux, not only is it the amount that you make on a daily basis, but it's also airdrops. Have you guys had experience with that?
Yeah, it's parallel assets, and
Correct.
parallel assets is calculated. I think it's calculated on what's in mine, right? Crypto Macau. It's calculated on what's in mine, 33%.
It is calculated. Like the newest one, like the Ergo drop is not calculated yet because it's not live technically. But on
September
the
12th.
quote of him with
2 days.
the nodes, with quote the nodes and everything, I ran a Flux node. I ran a Zell node back in the day. And if you're running one of those now, like you still have parallel mining assets that are being dropped every time there's a new release. Like you're still a claim. There's still a claim. So like, I hope no one threw away their old private keys to those old nodes that they migrated over to the new stuff because
never
they're literally just throwing money out the
Rewards
window.
from things that I did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
You
why
know what Flux
Ergo.
is?
This is why Ergo and Flux are from the community. The smaller miners are voting for Ergo and Flux. There's some benefits to each project, and I have been seeing some of the project leaders get on the channels with you guys and shoot the crap and talk a little bit about the products. That's really good to see, and they support us. But we'll see how the network shakes out. Yashnik, I know you've been stealing cards from me off of ebj.com. What are you going to be mining after the merge?
Well, most of you guys know what I do. But I mean, it's all about profits at the end of the day, guys. Come on. So, and we don't know what's going to happen after the merge. Let's be straight. Nobody fucking knows.
Nope.
Use my language. So, Aeon for me is still something that could be profitable for people. Nobody
Still
heard
shilling
that.
that stuff, man.
And no, I'm not shilling it at all.
I'm just kidding.
I know, I'm mining ETH right now, of course.
It is in your name, so it's a little sus.
But I am. Is it? I took it off. I did take it off.
He's messing with you.
Anyway, I'm dipping into the CPU world as well. I like Darrow. Anybody heard of it? Check it out.
Yeah, you told me about it. Sounds great.
You know, I don't know. I really don't know. Other than that, I mean, after ETH, it's a shit show.
We'll see. It's definitely going to be fun to watch.
I'm not going to say I'm going to mine Ergo, I'm going to mine Flux, or I'm going to mine whatever. I don't know yet.
Well, it's like a train wreck. We're going to watch this train wreck happen, and it's either going to go really glorious or really bad. But either way, I'm going to stand here watching.
Exactly.
I think we're just going to have a circle around.
I
just
like
we
it.
had mining.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like we had mining change over the time, like mining wasn't profitable for a very long time back, like in 2017 and so on. Ethereum popped up and then became the most profitable because of the price action. I think we're going to see that cycle again, where right now everybody's either going to sell GPUs or we're just going to have them off. But eventually something will take its place. And especially with what Flux is introducing, proof of useful work, once that comes live, I spoke with Daniel about it and it's honestly fascinating. Once that comes live, I think we're going to see a whole new industry. Mining will become completely different.
Of course. Can I go back to my little section here? And what I believe in is the mining community as a whole, to get together and do things together. It doesn't matter what coin. But what I'm doing now is, a lot of you know about the Aeon poker tournament. I got a Darrow poker tournament. There's gonna be a Neoxa poker tournament. There's gonna be an Ergo, maybe. I'm gonna talk to you, CW. I'm gonna talk to the Flux guys. I've been doing Aeon poker tournaments, and they're fabulous. They're awesome, and it gets the mining community. It's all I think about it. I don't care about the coin. It gets the mining community together as a whole. That's what I do, and I'll be in touch.
Yashnik mines people. But no, it is it's a great event to have people together. Like this is we don't have everybody that signed up, but it was great to speak to Vosk and Brandon Coin and many other people offline, check in with them, see how they're doing, the families. You guys keep in touch. Obviously we can't keep in touch with everybody because the mining community has grown so much, but it's definitely something I love being a part of. That's really what keeps me in the mining game, even if it isn't profitable. Speaking of minding my own business,
BBT has to make an announcement real fast because he says
you gonna make an announcement?
He's got a hot date. He's got to attend.
Yeah. I had promised the wifey on something. We're just a little over, but I'm gonna dip out. Let you guys. I'm gonna listen to it as I'm driving home. So definitely keep going, guys. I just wanted to have one last parting thing that to make sure everybody understands. Like this, been mining for a long time, and what I would say is there are cycles to things. And one of the things, especially with GPU mining, and I don't want people to get real depressed that I'm going to like a lot of Bitcoin mining when trying to shut down. It gave us opportunity to be part of that. GPU mining is very, very, very important. It gets huge communities. We can see what happened when communities went away from GPU mining. We saw what happened to Zcash. Zcash was huge, and it completely alienated its community. And nobody talks about it. And I like Zeke as a person. He's a very smart guy. He's very cypherpunk. I've always liked I like his stuff that he did with Cody recently. It was really good, but like the community is just gone, right? And I think GPU mining brings people together. It's the gateway entry into the space. You can get lost on this YouTube video and any of our videos, and you could the next morning have a payout for something. And it isn't about the money at that point, right? And that initial part, right? It's like, wow, I could participate. I didn't have to ask questions. I didn't have to ask for permission. I was able to partake in it. And that's a very key piece that unfortunately ETH is going to find out very soon, I think.
Yep.
That it's going to miss this entire ecosystem that is supporting it organically. And I think this is the one thing they're completely missing. That all these fly-by-night YOLO folks that are coming into NFTs and stuff could care less about it from a community side, right? They're fair weather, right? If it's fair weather, they're there. If it's not, they're out, right? Where this community has been with them for a long time. And we see that with proof of work coins that move away from it. So keep, you know, you have hardware, you have GPUs. If you need to park them for a bit, Things this community will drum up innovation that will provide participation ability. And circumstantially, we're able to sell some coins for some, keep the lights on. Yes. But at the end of the day, this community, what you guys, we're all part of right now, is the exact thing that I think helps drive this industry organically. And we're going to see that. So I wanted to say that as a parting thing, that I know a lot of people are freaked out what's going to happen, but we've been through cycles of this, my dudes. So head out.
Very well said.
Appreciate you, buddy.
It's not our first rodeo, won't be our last.
Words from the BBT has a future as a motivational speaker.
Oh, dude. Wait till you meet him in person, man. He'll hype you up.
Can we kiss the ring somewhere?
Yeah, you have to like walk barefoot over old broken mining fans over at his little retreat.
Worth it.
See you, my dude.
Love you, BBT.
BBT, we say hello. We'll see you around.
Just on that, I'd like to sort of just elaborate on that a little. It's very well said how Carter sort of had that nice little segue and exit there. I think the mining community as a whole, the GPU mining community as a whole, has had a lot of sort of flack thrown at them just in regards to sort of the extraction of value that people sort of perceive. But a lot of people don't recognize that the community behind mining is massive. So there's multi-billion-dollar industry here, but miners just aren't basically a source of security. They're community members, they're developers, they're building out ecosystems, which in turn basically provides value for themselves. And I think that's very, very often overlooked and a major benefit for the mining community as a whole. You know, when they do come together and rally, it's amazing to see sort of all that come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys are the only reason why I'm still here.
Honestly. Back to Mind-Your-Biz, right? Mind-Your-Biz.
Oh yeah, Mind-Your-Biz. Mind-Your-Biz had the floor there, and what were you gonna do? What were you gonna say? You were saying something?
No, it's all right. You were asking the question, what are people doing post merge? And I mean, I think I haven't made any secret of it. I chose not to scale up this cycle, so I've maintained what would be a small to mid scale mining operation, and I took profit. Instead of, telling myself I could reinvest, I felt like it would have been a mistake for me to buy at the prices that GPUs were, and so that was the path that I chose. And then, didn't quit the day job. So I went full degen into some of the assets, getting leveled up on LP, getting leveled up on DeFi, trying to understand what they were actually doing, trying to wrap my head around what synthetic derivatives and all that other, nonsense we were talking about before actually means. Because there's a lot of, seriously, there are a lot of people who are speculating, especially VCs. They're dumping unbelievable, stupid money into the other sides of DeFi, and I was trying to figure out why. And so I'm still at below a gigahash. I actually scaled down from a gigahash so I could keep something to spec mine with. So that's my answer. I might do a couple of these high caps, which for us, right, for GPU mining, these are high caps. They're not really considered high caps in the rest of crypto. But I'm going to be looking at nano caps. I'm going to be looking at day 0 and day 1 launches, just like I did with Zono. A lot of us did, we did the launch day for Zono and other really small projects that were GPU mineable. So I'm going to be pretty much just gem hunting for those few GPUs that I still have, and I'm going to be restructuring what I have into infrastructure that's a lot more CPU heavy. So I'm going to be focusing on the nodes themselves, beefing them up, and then I'm going to be distributing what little I have in GPUs now across those nodes and make them a lot more flexible. So I can go more CPU heavy if I need to. I can go storage heavy if I so choose, or I can choose all of the above and go triple threat. And then of course running my own full nodes. I think personally for what I'm forecasting, I think one of the next big hurdles in crypto is going to be like genuine sovereignty. I'm not going to be comfortable relying on somebody else's full node anymore.
Well spoken.
Actually, that's what I do, mineyour.biz. I have those 3 spectrums. I don't know if we count helium. I'm not sure. But yeah, the full spectrum, right? So I split my, my whole mining farm. Let's put my mining farm into, you know, half GPU, half CPU, and some Chia and storage stuff. So I keep my options open at all times, no matter what happens in the market. I have something.
Take
nice.
And I planned that like a year ago, right? So
yeah, you mentioned. I was gonna say, you mentioned, a few people mentioned Chia, and I know a lot of people had kind of parted ways with their builds and setups there. I think there's a lot to be said for the people that have held on to that, especially, I don't know if many of you guys have heard about the Flux storage project coming along, that if you're still rocking Chia, hold on to that hardware, because they got a really cool system, kind of Dropbox on steroids, but via Flux storage nodes, and it's going to be pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if anyone else has heard about it.
You know what the government calls it? They call it proof of capacity. There's proof of stake, proof of work, and proof of capacity is what they call it in their chart. I just linked it in the Zoom chat because we're gonna move on to that next here shortly. But according to the hobbyist miner, keep your eyes out on that project. Hawk crypto mining. I know what you're focusing on, but tell the live viewers what you're focusing on as far as after the merge.
Man. Well, here. What I'm mining is, I'm just going to get rid of, obviously we can't do Ethereum anymore, so I'm just going to stick with the basics. I'm going to do one on Ergo, get Flux. I got Litecoin and Doge. I got L7s running. I have Polo Mini. So, I mean, I'm going to stick to the script with everything. I have the capacity to go into different things. So, and, you know, if I have to pay a little out of pocket, that's okay. I'm going to do that. Right now I'm focusing on hosting. We have a new hosting company partnered with GPU Risers. We have a new facility. So right now I've stopped buying GPUs. And it pains me because like I see like
prices.
Oh my God, the prices, but then Panda opens a box of 6700 XTs and I'm like, God, I want these so bad, man.
Just a few boxes.
That's just a few. So right now I'm focusing on the hosting. That's just, I got to get this new facility up and going. I'm going to be leaving this facility and I wasn't even here a year. So it's been a blessing that it's growing so fast. And now with GPU Risers and me, because we're not far from each other. So now that we've grown and partnered together with this new facility, it's going to be massive. So that's what I'm doing. What I'm offering is we're going to try to get these people that pay ridiculous amounts for electricity to try to get them over, keep them mining through the merge if we can. You know, we're going to negotiate a good rate. So that's what I'm working on. Yes, I'm still mining. Yeah, I've actually had to turn a couple of my rigs off because I had to plug some customers in. But yeah.
What coin are you more interested in though?
Man, I'm a fan of Flux and Ergo. I know it's just kind of like the same train everybody's on, but you know, like I also do a couple. You know, I spec mine too. Like I have, like just like mineyour.biz said, I got a couple rigs I throw on different things just to try different things. So, right now I got 3 gigahash on Ergo. I got 4 gigahash on Ethereum still until you can't do it. Then I'll probably move all that to Flux or just split it up in between the two. And got some Neoxa, like Neoxa as well. I haven't started mining Ravencoin at all, but who knows? You know, I'll just monitor the markets and just switch them accordingly.
Nice. Diversifying, but also growing your op. And eventually I'll have to come down and check out you and GPU Risers.
Yeah,
Rapid mining. Yeah, no, I'm for about 3.5 hours. Well, if I'm speeding, I'm about 3 hours north of you.
Allegedly.
Rapid mining. We know that you're CPU heavy, but what coins are you gonna be focusing on after the merge?
I'm not really sure. So at first, like I said, with the Ergo difficulty, I might just point at Ergo at first, wait for that to adjust. I have a lot of GPU cleaning to do. I got them ETH hash ASICs, so I'll probably hit some ETC with them. Also, it sounds like Conflux CIP did go through, so Conflux will be swapping the ETH hash as well. So that'll open up another coin for them ASICs. I don't know. So pretty much that's my game plan. I'll probably shut down for a while. Maybe mine some no-name coins. And then obviously we got the CPUs.
Take some strips of paper and write the coin name on it and then go put it on a dartboard and then throw a dart. And you got to mine the coin for that week.
Hey, you can't be taking my ideas.
All right. GPU risers. What are you gonna? You've been quiet for much of the meeting. Let's hear you out before we move into the next topic here, and then we're gonna wrap up this stream. What are you gonna be mining after the ETH merge?
The plan right now is going to be Ergo on the NVIDIA cards, and on the AMD cards, we're going to switch over to Ravencoin. The memory temperatures on Ergo are a lot better than ETH. So the 3090s have definitely been liking that. And then the AMD cards that we have been running kind of cool, so we can kind of bump those up a little bit on Kapow. So that's the plan. Going to do that probably in a couple of days and then close my eyes for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the sounds of it, what everybody's, mentioning, they're diversifying their portfolio, but many of you have spoken in the live chat and in the live stream, as well as some of the crypto content creators here, that Ergo and Flux seems like the top two coins they're going to be keeping an eye on. Obviously, things are going to have to pan out. This is going to be the first couple of weeks, probably months, before things start to happen. The network hash rate adjusts, the difficulty adjusts. Price discovery happens. There's going to be a lot of changes, and this is a big change to our world, which is why I wanted to bring this meeting together. And moving on to the next topic, because I have a lot of key points in my document that we didn't go over, but this is the most important because this is something that mineyour.biz brought up and I've been thinking about highly. And that is, after the Ethereum merge, there's going to be a significant amount, and I mentioned this before, there's going to be a significant amount of power being given back or being allotted back to the infrastructure for your country, state, wherever you're at. That's a lot of miners either turning off their rigs, which I do believe there's going to be a lot of GPUs that are going to flood the secondhand market. So if you're still hunting for a GPU, just be a little bit more patient. Not only are we going to have 4000 series, we're going to have AMD 7000 series, but we're also going to have a flood of second gen GPUs or secondhand, excuse me. And then you'll be able to pick up some GPUs for relatively cheap if you wait till after the merge. But that power is something that we need to figure out, not as a country, but as a world. And so recently, we know in the beginning of this year, our president here in the US issued an executive order to do a report. They're bringing back some numbers. I linked it in the Zoom call. I'm going to link it in the live chat. We talked about it a little bit this morning on Caffeine and Crypto. But I wanted to talk about some of the power numbers. Seth told me during the Twitter Spaces meeting that I think we're estimated to be around 75 terawatt hours.
That's about
annually.
Right. Yeah, it's about right. That's so, and I guess I'll show my work here, which is to say I copied somebody else's homework. So, so Eric Wall, right? He's an analyst he ran a fund for a while. So I'm doing, I broke our one rule. I trust that it didn't verify, but he managed a fund for a long time. And so I am going to trust that that's the absolute state of things right now is about 75 terawatt hours.
75 terawatt hours. And I mean, that's a decent number, but while everybody's pointing the fingers at proof of work and mining being bad for the electrical grid and the greenhouse gases and yada, 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 they seem to just want to throw somebody in front of the bullet is what it feels like, unfortunately, because there's a lot of other sectors that are not eco-friendly, and the world needs to move towards eco or renewable resources, and not just one, right? We can't just put solar panels on everybody's fucking roof. We have to diversify that: wind, water, or hydro, solar, nuclear, fusion. We're making advancements in all different aspects, but we do need to beef up not only the third world countries, but our own country here in North America to really stand up and handle the load we're going to put on it. Because Bitcoin mining continues to grow. I have a feeling it will continue to grow, even though we're losing a lot of miners, probably getting out of the game, selling their rigs, whatever, because they just built it for Ethereum. They don't care about any other coin.
Whoa.
Some, not all, some.
I just want to bump in here real quickly. Are we talking about 75 terawatt hour for Ethereum specifically, or the entire
mining
proof of work world? I see. I mean, because when Serpent was talking, he said for Ethereum specifically, I don't think we're anywhere near even a terawatt.
I did a video on this where I compared, and mineyour.biz will probably agree with me here because looks like he has some knowledge in it. The internet, the internet is 10 times more power consuming than mining. If the narrative is really to make things greener, don't give me the BS about mining. I don't want to hear it. It's complete. I have a video on it. It's on my channel. If you guys want to watch it, go ahead. I give you the stats. I don't give you any BS. It's all BS. The U.S. military, okay, you waste 600 terawatt hours a year, okay, for nothing. It's wasted.
DJ's gonna rip on you for that comment.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. Me and DJ, DJ will probably agree. But it's just like the argument for mining and the power usage is complete bogus. It's not true. I don't care what anybody says about it. We can have this debate. There's just they need a weapon to attack with, and that's the thing. They're gonna get everybody who's a tree hugger. They're gonna get them all together. They're gonna sing Kumbaya. Yep. They're gonna attack proof of work mining.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in real quick. I'm gonna shill really quick. So quick shilling on that note. So I've got a piece coming out in Crypto Magazine, the next issue of Crypto Magazine. It is literally titled "ESG is a Scam." You're welcome in advance.
Thank you.
So hold on, let me just do my 2 cents here.
Okay.
The movement of the entire world, and if you've ever gone overseas, and I know some people have not like been overseas to like different countries and different islands and whatnot, the environmental change and all the other shit that's going on with pollution and plastics and all this other stuff, it's the buzzword, and it is an issue. It's a fucking issue, and whether or not you choose to believe that we are adding to that is your own, you can look on the internet and find whatever solution you want for your, like, whatever argument you want, you can find on the internet. And you can find someone else who's going to agree with you, and you can find someone who's going to deny with you. But the fact is that we are generating a butt ton more energy than we were before the pandemic, before this huge Ethereum blow up and all this, everybody's mining from home. So there's a ton. They couldn't even build enough GPUs to handle the load because it was profitable to buy a GPU. So everyone was doing it. That's not
NVIDIA held back. NVIDIA got caught.
Right.
Like
so they did, and you know what?
Holding back inventory to inflate numbers artificially.
But also, and the LHR stuff, and that was actually, if you in hindsight, I mean, yes, everyone was all pissed off about it, but reality, it did slow down some of the purchases, and it did slow down some of the actual quote unquote hash rate because everyone, it was profitable to buy any GPU. So, and all of that was going onto the electrical grids, all of that's going back into the air, unless your country, like Canada, has a ton of hydro and solar and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to tote Canada's poll, but anyways, there's tons of places that are just pumping stuff into the air and we just don't want to see it. So it is a thing for crypto. And, we look at Chia and serpentxtech. He does Chia, and that was one of his big, like, things at the start of Chia. He's like, hey, you know what? If we can run the blockchain off hard drives and like indexed hard drives, basically, and it does the same speed of transactions, why would we have these GPUs that are going 100% pulling 200 watts when you have 10 hard drives that are doing 100 watts? But anyways, look, I know you said the internet thing. That's just
I'm just like everybody.
I think the internet thing is totally irrelevant. The internet actually provides a service, and we're like.
But if there's a problem with power, you upgrade the power system. It's a failing 50-year-old system.
Please jump in here. Sonofatech,
failing infrastructure for 50-year-old systems. We need nuclear and better lines.
Brian,
you don't just add more power.
You have to upgrade the systems. The power in the United States has been unchanged since
for 50 years.
47. Longer than that.
Okay.
Last time.
Let's slow it down.
God damn it, Hawk.
Slow it down.
I can't take you anywhere.
It's coming, baby. Slow it down.
Serpent, I was going to jump in on one thing that a lot of you guys probably saw was the comment, the tweet that bitsbetrippin Carter had. I think it was yesterday. And I really love the avenue that he's going and the take he's going on the whole power thing. And it is the fact is like, we as miners are just consumers and a lot of you guys probably saw this and went on threads, and it's like, why do we need to be concerned about green energy? Why do we have to be concerned about the gases and such? It's like, for us at the end of the day, we're just a consumer. It's not up to us. Is anybody pointing fingers at our electric companies and how they're generating the electric and how they've updated? No,
They
no one
won't,
is.
because
No,
the
exactly,
entire argument,
exactly.
the entire environmental argument is only used by people in power to oppress those that
Yeah.
are not in power. And that's the end of the story. And you don't need to go beyond that. We could argue all day about our impact on the environment, but the fact is it's the people who are in power that are affecting the environment. And it's your politicians, it's your government. That's who is. And the biggest impactors are usually the people that are telling you to turn off your shit while they're flying jets all over the place. So it doesn't make any sense.
And on top of that, if you guys have seen the headlines just today, if you guys read the headlines on Google News or whatever, your government in the United States has actually brought on some new headlines.
It's not
Read
gonna
them. Read them. Read them.
So
Read them.
hang on, guys. So the power issue is not an issue that we can solve alone. It's an issue.
It's not a
that
power issue.
Well, we could get power. The problem is we need to get cleaner power. Period. We need to.
Well, there's a study by Coinbase.
Buddy, hold on a second.
But
Hold on. Cleaner power is not our fault.
No, it's not. It's the
Wait a minute,
infrastructure. And so government needs to update the infrastructure. But the reason I said this and the reason this got so heated is because I want you as a miner, the at-home miner, to understand and pay attention to your local politicians, your local state official, your legislation, and be aware of the decisions they're making. Because the decisions they're making impact all of you. And if you're not paying attention to these little nuances, then they'll just do whatever because homeboy's greasing their pockets. Big oil, right? All the power companies, JEA, my company, my electric company has been caught with corruption. Like these guys get paid, they paid politicians and legislators to vote in the way that they want. So that way they can continue to collect money from us. But we got enterprises from small to mid-scale miners making good decisions and making sure they're powering their fucking rigs with renewable resources. All right. If you didn't tap into the methane that was leaching out in Texas, it would just continue to spill into the atmosphere. So we got people going out there, tapping into it, turning it into power, and then mining with it. What is wrong with that? Well, it still produces greenhouse gases. I understand that. But at least that's a more useful way of dealing with the problem. We're trying to address
it drops the greenhouse gases. Actually, that stuff going just venting is just 8 times worse than burning it because you're changing form on there. So I mean, chemically, it's better to just kind of you already released the gas pocket. Now what?
Yeah, if you want to use the ecological science of global warming, if you want to continue, and I'll take that side of the debate, custom computing. I will. Let me get on your side of this debate real quick, because I think broadly speaking, you're the only person who's taking that side. So really quickly, to do the least harm right now, like what Nemesis is saying, it does fulfill your requirements to do less harm. Just off-gassing of methane directly into the environment is more harmful. And so if we do want to decrease the harm, we can either just do gas flaring, which is literally just burning it for no purpose, and we do less harm to the environment, or we can attach an on-site Jenny and we can make it do something useful, even like marginally useful, like mining. And we actually improve the environment measurably. And I mean, it's not. Here's some numbers. Let me keep on this stuff. Here's some numbers real quick. We got over 100 billion. Get this, not cubic centimeters per year. We got over 100 billion cubic meters of this stuff being spewed into the atmosphere per year.
Right.
Like we could save the environment. Literally, we could save the trees.
And methane's way worse than CO2.
I'll go one step further, and I'll even go on the custom computing side of the argument too. It's like, instead of looking at the cause of the burnt fuel, right? What caused it? Fracking. Why are we still paying for fracking if that is causing damage in the long run too? Oklahoma gets earthquakes. It's freaking landlocked. It gets earthquakes because of fracking.
Yeah.
They have a lot of oil. They have a lot of flaring out there too. That's wasted energy now. It's like we're not hitting the root cause of the problem.
Exactly. No, and you're right.
And I'll agree with you on that too.
Absolutely.
It's funny.
It's funny because that's kind of where serpentxtech has kind of like said, like, you have to look at your politicians. You have to look at where they're going with their policies.
Exactly.
Because are they attacking the actual root cause of the entire pollution.
No,
No. Because we're all
if
getting
you look
money.
at the headlines,
Right.
if you look at the headlines just today and yesterday and today, look at them.
Well, I know.
They're attacking.
But I think, anyway, so
they're attacking
I'm not a
miners.
Look,
They're
I
attacking
have
miners.
5 gigahash in my basement.
Right
okay,
before
guys?
the ETH
I
merge.
am not holier than thou. I've been mining 5 gigahash
Right
for
before
the
the
last
ETH
2
merge.
years. Like I'm just as that fault for everything.
The article that you read, the article that you read is terrible. It's a subjective
articles.
It's all BS. They're trying to guess what was said in there.
I understand that. I'm just telling you.
But
just to wrap up this conversation, guys, so we don't continue on.
It's too much. Continue on, please.
No, this is a problem that needs to be addressed, but we right now cannot address it. You, me, and everybody in here cannot address it, right? The only way we can address it is by properly educating our leadership or obtain a position in leadership and help change the direction. You're going to have a hard time doing that because politics is right now, but I hate politics. The point being is the White House officially released. They're getting information about this. They're learning more. And they're getting advised that if they can't make it more renewable or cleaner, then they should ban mining. Now, I doubt that would happen, but that is a concern that everybody, mining at home or not, should pay attention to. And again, participate in your local legislation, government, politicians, whatever, and make sure that they're getting properly educated. Because while you talking to them in one ear, somebody else is putting money in their pocket and on the other side. So pay attention, because blockchain technology as a whole isn't going anywhere, in my opinion, and it has some great benefits for the world to utilize. So don't let them use this argument as the reason why mining should be stopped in the first place. But moving on.
Wait, Serpent, I just want to add one thing quickly on this topic before we move on. Something I think we missed, all of us. Maybe we didn't, but if we look at the alternative for mining, so we're mining because we're supporting this decentralized financial system. If we look at the alternative, would be paper and pulp production, which is for the banking system as a whole, uses around 100 terawatts a year, or terawatt hour, 100 terawatt hour. So if we compare that with crypto, we're using more for the banking system than we are using for crypto. And us, we're just supporting this decentralized financial system.
Right.
Like, this is our better option. Like, we're deciding to support this.
Listen,
so it doesn't
I
make
have
sense
to,
for us to stop it.
Mining Chamber, sorry, brother. I have to go because I got to run with Chum Change. But I want to say thank you guys for bringing me on here. Serpentxtech, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Real quick before I leave, and this is something I agree with Blind Run on. A lot of crypto tubers don't want to talk about politics. I get it. That's your opinion. Politics, crypto is way too big now, and politics are going to be involved. We need to talk about it, I think, as a group discussion. I'm not trying to start another wave of BS. I'm just saying we have to consider the politics side of it now. It's a lot bigger than it was before. So,
fair
guys,
enough.
Thank you.
I feel
appreciate
politics is a
Good
good
luck
way
to
to
you.
make our channels disappear.
Well, I'm not
talking about religion instead.
Hold on. I'm not saying you got to go left or right or anything. But hey, listen, it's there now. Once things get into Wall Street, it's going to become political. So here we go. This is where it's going to go. If we're gonna at least guide the train, we have to guide the train down the right way. People are going to look to us. A lot of miners are going to look to us, and people are going to look to people like us. Not me. I'm small compared to all the rest of you guys, but they're going to look to bigger people to say, hey, what are you guys doing? Or what's this? It's a discussion we have to have sooner or later. Stop putting off the politics. We got to talk about it. Love you guys. Thank you.
Love it, man. No, Hawk,
Take
that
care.
was fucking awesome. That was a
Mining
fucking
Chamber.
awesome sign off.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Mining
that was
Chamber.
awesome.
Going back to your,
Take care, buddy. See you later.
The paper mills and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Up here in Canada, anyways, they've been shutting down, for the past 30 years, one after another, shutting down the communities of, all those plants.
Paper and pulp.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
I think
Big
it's
time.
important also to get back to the actual grassroots.
So I don't understand
and
what
the
your
reason
point
why
was.
crypto actually came into sort of fruition, and it's basically providing counter economic tools for the everyday person. And proof of work mining is that that barrier to entry where you don't actually need to go through an actual KYC scenario. You can just purchase some hardware and interact with these with an alternative financial system, and that's basically what crypto is. And in my opinion, what crypto should get back to, that grassroots sort of philosophy around providing these economic tools for everyone to be able to participate in an alternate system. I think that's sort of, you see on one hand, the headlines, it's an ECG sort of side, but then on the other side, it's an attack on proof of work. And the proof of work side of things, I think it's a big agenda, because you can interact with these systems by not having to go through KYC channels, whether that's previously being having held crypto, or through an exchange, P2P exchange, centralized exchange, etc., like that. So it's a huge benefit for the everyday person to be able to do that through a proof of work mining system.
Well, who's my privacy advocate in the room? I wonder.
Well,
privacy.
Inherently, crypto is political, like Bitcoin was a political movement.
It was caused by a political movement.
Yeah.
Why
So
would Satoshi create Bitcoin?
To ignore that would be a little silly and a little short-sighted. So yes, that is something that you would have to come to terms with. I think
if you elaborate.
What do you mean?
Well, Satoshi's white paper and his initial.
Bitcoin was created after the fall of the situation, the financial crash in 2008.
When they had to do the bailout. Yeah, the beginning of the bailout.
I'm a mortgage broker and a real estate broker for 28 years. 2008 destroyed me.
So because of that, you want a decentralized infrastructure to where the average Joe can participate and, build some economic wealth for themselves. But crypto has taken on a whole new face, and it's actually being steered, in my opinion, if we want to get political, by people who shouldn't be making decisions for the rest of us. So that's why I just wanted to talk about this, because it does need to be a conversation, maybe another conversation, but go ahead, son.
There's basically a fork in the road right now, and it's CBDCs or it's Bitcoin. And basically you have, essentially, from my point of view, freedom or oppression right now. And that's the fork in the road. And they're going to use all the fear mongering possible to convince you that it's going to be a lot simpler and a lot better for you to just follow the path of the CBDC. The government will take care of it for you. Look, if you're a little poor, they'll give you a little bit money for some food here and there. If there's another lockdown, they'll help you out with that sort of stuff. This is the path, this is the fork that we're on right now, and they're going to use every single tool in their toolbox to demonize cryptocurrency if they can't control it.
But son, they're going to track every single freaking transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CBDCs. Yeah.
CBDCs. China's already doing that.
That is sick.
Yeah.
Improper. Unconstitutional.
The digital yuan has already been doing that for what, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, though, it's an inconvenient truth, or something that's important for all of us to acknowledge as well, is that the IRS has had the number on UTXO tracking well before Chainalysis started to publicly offer this as a service or make it obvious that UTXO systems were that trivial to de-anonymize. Bitcoin is not your safe haven for privacy. Litecoin is not your safe haven for privacy. NWeb is helping, but it's still not there yet. Zcash is not your safe haven for privacy. Monero might be, but there's a lot of suppression going on there as well, right? Like now you got Gensler saying, okay, broadly speaking, you got proof of work coins that are going to be, we'll let those be commodities. Everything else is security, basically. We're going to call them the CFTC. Now they're giving you the illusion of choice. Which regulatory body do you want to let your holdings be governed by? All the while, not letting you realize, like not letting you think long enough that, like, oh, wait a second, I don't want any of you guys regulating this. Like, I want you to wait a little longer and figure out exactly how this stuff is supposed to work, be transparent about policy, and let us vote on policy. Not just give us from the ivory tower how we're allowed to use these systems just because you've de-anonymized them and you know what we're doing with them, right?
Voted by who?
Mind your biz. Actually, that's a very good comment. I wanted, and this was one of the talking points that we were supposed to get to, which we haven't gotten to yet, but this has been great conversation. Proof of work versus proof of stake for Ethereum, and whether or not that is going to be a positive for a cryptocurrency DeFi / whatever, and also if it's going to be centralization, right? So my tinfoil hat thinks that the CRA, actually that's the Canadian Revenue, sorry, the same thing in the US, is waiting for Ethereum to go proof of stake and then they're going to fucking hit them just like they did with XRP. As soon as they go proof of stake and they are one single entity and they can be attacked, they're just going to fucking throw the book at them and be like, okay, you're shut down.
Yeah,
Right?
hey,
Like,
custom
that's my
computing.
turn.
Yeah. So just
what do you guys
a little FYI. I mean, it's not common knowledge, but Barbados does not have extradition with Canada. Just FYI, in case you were looking at a place to go.
I lived in Barbados. I actually went to school there, to be honest.
It's a great spot, right, for Canadians for that reason.
It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Speaking of proof of stake, you know, that was a big conversation, Twitter Spaces, and I've been taking 2 hours of your time, guys, and I apologize and I appreciate your patience. You know, proof of stake is very centralized in nature. Is that still true, Blind Run? Are we still looking at a very centralized?
We're looking at currently like somewhere, I believe it's 40% on AWS right now, 41%. Now 19% is on Hetzner, which already outlawed them. Well, you know, put it against their terms of service.
Yeah.
So that's another about 20% that's probably going to move over from there to AWS, which will put AWS in control of over 50%. And then, yeah, so as we've seen in the past with AWS and the way they function, they can pretty much, you know, if the US government decides they don't like something or they want something censored, AWS has been more than willing to shut stuff down for them. So being centralized on AWS, where we potentially have over 50% of the consensus on a single entity like that, does mean that it is susceptible to specifically the US government now, which I think from a worldwide perspective, you know, if I was a citizen of a different country or something along those lines, I would be worried about that.
Tornado Cash. What?
Well, that is that's where the switching comes in that they're talking about. So
that could affect a lot of pools.
Ask Crypto Mikkel about switches
or nodes or nodes.
But yes, it's inherently centralized on AWS right now.
And so, I mean, we're going proof of stake. That's happening, right? So
well,
ETH
ETH
no longer
is.
be, well, yeah, ETH is. ETH
We're
is
just talking about ETH.
Yeah, that's what the name of the meeting is.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just saying.
But I mean, this is happening.
I'm not though.
There's going to be some changes.
Well, okay. I'm sorry, Serpent. Let Blind Run finish the story. Let's say, right? There's a lot of nodes. There's a lot of pool operations running on Hetzner or OVH, whatnot. What's that jurisdiction on that? Other than ETH?
The jurisdiction on AWS?
No, on
what?
Hetzner having to comply with what you just said about Ethereum nodes running on Hetzner or
Hetzner doesn't want to deal with the regulation of the financial system, trying to censor out transactions because. And I think by them, there's a regular, because like I briefly looked into the whole Hetzner thing, and it looks like they somewhere about German law is that they become liable,
right,
potentially for a bad transaction, and they were like, I don't even want to deal, even if that's not how it's going to work out. I don't even want to get in. They're like, I don't even want to get started in this one. No, so they were like. They just X'd out the whole thing. And that to them as a business move, probably the smartest thing they could possibly do.
Yeah, but it's a push-pull motion between the service providers and the ETH core devs themselves. I think Vitalik was the one that said that any infrastructure providers that are complicit in censorship will get slashed. Was it Vitalik or was it right?
Yeah, Vitalik.
Yeah,
I think it was Vitalik. I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, like he's also said some stuff that he hasn't followed through on, right? Like, no hack, right? Like, this is the chain that's rolled back, right?
Man. That's like, if 51% of the mining thing is on one place like Amazon, then he's not going to be like, okay, you guys are done. Like, no, you can't do that. So
that would be really scary.
I mean, it's definitely a little bit scary.
Well, he would be.
The question was, is it going to be better or worse for Ethereum? Are we going up? Is this going to be a thing that we're going to see going up in the future, or is this going to crash?
Well, let's technically correct that real quick, though, so that people understand. They would be slashing the nodes that are running on AWS, and the people that are running the nodes on AWS could potentially move their nodes off of AWS, thereby avoiding the slashing. So it could still be done, right?
Yeah,
like you could still do the slashing to influence the node operators to move off of AWS.
And go
yeah,
where?
so yeah, totally.
Well,
setting
that's
the
the
record
next-
straight there. Yeah, they're not
Google
slashing the
or-
entire platform. They're slashing the node operators specifically. But the issue with that is if it's brought out to its logical conclusion, the game theory goes that if there's a broad sweeping policy at that service provider, like it is with Hetzner right now, if there's a broad sweeping policy that affects every node operator, well, the Vitalik has said, yeah, we'll slash all those node operators. That means that if they're going to stay true to their word, they'll slash everybody on that platform. I don't think they have the guts to do that. I think you're right. I think when it comes to a game of chicken between the ETH core devs and these large infrastructure providers, and then the U.S. government, more like a Mexican standoff, I guess. Like they're gonna stand down. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna stand for censorship resistance.
If what custom computing said happens,
It only takes one,
SEC cracks
and then
down
the
on
others
it,
follow.
then it will be
That's
sketchy.
all I'm saying.
And
You
they've
got
already got
OVH.
some things in there with the money transmitter and mining and doing validations that hasn't had any other clarification. That it's like the regulations that's already in play might be bad for Ethereum, even on, they're not going to be able to hide on AWS, I don't think.
No.
Well, no, of course not. Not from the government. The government sees all. The eye in the sky. So
the government
Ship
has
everything to
servers
Barbados
and
is what
like
we're saying.
Microsoft, AWS, like you know what I mean. Like
so
they have servers there. Like of course they're gonna comply.
Yeah. Right. So
And the laws but all the laws are already there to be that would force compliance to make them a money transmitter, which means they'd have to be able to do the AML. They have to, and what data center is going to want to deal with that?
Maybe new class. It might give a cottage industry a fighting chance at becoming an
I'll
additional
give you that.
entrant.
If somebody wants to do it, go for it.
With everything that we heard,
For example,
is proof of stake a positive move long term for Ethereum? I'm going to speak on this real quick because I want to wrap up this live stream. I think it's a positive move because if they continue to delay proof of work, it would continue to degrade the public's confidence in the overall ecosystem of Ethereum. It's an unfortunate move that they're moving from proof of work to proof of stake, but I think it is a positive move for Ethereum long term. Now, I'm not saying it's going to like pump, after the merge, there might be a little buy the rumor, sell the news type situation, but it is a positive move for Ethereum to switch to proof of stake. How it's going to, react long term is yet to be determined, but I do think it's a positive move.
If I may interject, so EIP 5059 for our miners was a slap in the balls.
It was a big middle finger.
We all made it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we supported their network for years and years and years, and that was just for a cash grab. And now
It was necessary to a T. Most of that upgrade was necessary, but that one particular part was the slap to the nuts.
they didn't have to do it. They could have waited a year till E2, correct?
I think on the contrary, like
Debatable whether
EAP
they even had to do it at
1559
all.
was pretty good. Like the fact that they're burning fees and making it deflationary at some point of the time, it was pretty good for the price action. It obviously didn't get it up that high, but tokenomic wise, it's a good idea. We can't say it's not a good idea.
From a marketing,
Because Ethereum always goes up, it's always inflating. There's no max supply, and implementing that changed the game for Ethereum. Other than that, it becomes just it becomes too saturated. It wouldn't be really good anymore.
Yeah, but so that can be played both ways, right? So the investor confidence narrative of finally delivering on a roadmap item, such as like finally moving to proof of stake, makes sense. You can't keep your investors in limbo forever, especially not the initial ICO bag holders. Bro, if you were sitting on 2,000 ETH or 4,000 ETH because you sacrificed, you gave up 2 full Bitcoin for that, you'd be chomping at the bit for this change, right? You'd be like, all right, I want to be in position to get block rewards on those 4,000 ETH that I got lying around. I get it, but on the flip side, if you can just change tokenomics and financial policy like that, right? Like with a bunch of 20 to 30 year old somethings that are like developers, not economists, and they're all deciding, oh yeah, we're going to make these massive economic changes to this token issuance. Bro, what's it going to require for them to just like bend the knee for any old government entity saying, you know what, you should make that change. You should make that change. You know what other change you should make? You know what? Don't even call them tokens anymore. Let's call them CBDTs. Yeah, maybe people will go for that. Like, it actually shows a huge lack of resolve and spine when you get these massive economic, tokenomic changes 7 years into the game, and it was never roadmapped, right? So on the one hand, finally delivering what you promised, but on the other hand, coming out of left field with tokenomic and issuance changes that nobody saw coming and nobody on the network, like, I should say most of retail didn't agree to. Now it's like this cool investor narrative, but they look like kind of... You know, they look like looks like a lack of character, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Well, that's why when
their hand in with ETC.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. When what happened in ETC in 2016, you know, code is law, and they were like, no, screw that. We're gonna do what we want and how we want it, and they moved on. And now they moved on from the miners to something else.
And they didn't care about consensus.
But you see, if you go to CoinMarketCap, ETC is a fork of F. That's unbelievably insane. Have you guys seen
we
that?
talked about that in the Twitter Spaces. That's incorrect. Ethereum is a fork of Ethereum Classic.
Yeah.
Ethereum Classic is the OG in the space, so to speak.
Yeah, ETC didn't give anybody's money back because bad code wasn't their problem.
So
semantics,
decentralized, but let's roll back until.
But is it a security?
Right?
We don't have enough time to discuss that.
I don't think that's we're going to definitely go into the weeds. So in summary,
again, it's been in the headlines in about past 2 days. Read up.
Yeah, no, Gensler already proposed what he thinks it should be.
In summary, the Ethereum merge is still suspected. I even checked Bortle.wtf, still looking about almost 12 o'clock UTC, 1200 hours UTC, September 15th, whatever that translates for your area. So it's either going to be middle of the night, September 15th, or probably early in the morning. Again, BBT, and I agree, we can't definitively say right this very second, but if you keep an eye throughout the week as we move forward, once we get closer, the 13th, 14th, we should see what the actual time frame is going to be like. But this is a big change. As you can see, there's disagreements and agreements throughout the crypto mining community. There's even more in the whole ecosystem of cryptocurrency. And we're going to see this big change happen right in front of us, and see how everybody kind of shapes up. You hear all our thoughts and what we're going to do and how we're adjusting and how we're diversifying or consolidating or expanding, whatever it may be in different areas. But this is a big change, and why I wanted to have this meeting. Got a little bit heated there for a minute on the power discussion, but again, we don't have the power to influence that right this very second. However, you as the individual miner, as the retail investor, as the person at home, small farm, big farm, I don't give a damn. You need to pay attention. You need to be involved in the conversation, and you need to speak up about it to your local, congressmen, senators, legislative, whatever it may be. But I'm looking forward to it. Now, King Charles. I did have some questions on my side. Nobody provided me any questions from your streams.
I have a question if we can through later, unless we're wrapping it up.
No, go. I want to wrap it up. Go ahead with your question.
So this is something I want to pick your guys' brain on. So we know that mining will become a lot less profitable. Now, this question will be directed to CW as well and any other coins out there. So if mining will become less profitable, that means we need to be more efficient to be able to mine. Would that mean we're going to see a lot more centralization in mining, where only big farms with like very cheap electric will be mining, and then all the other people that have high electricity will not be mining anymore? Is this going to be a problem where we're going to see a similar thing with the AWS situation, but in proof of work?
That's an interesting topic, because we can see that currently now with the BTC side of things, and it's basically an arbitrage around power and jurisdictions. So miners will pack up and obviously move to a place that is friendlier jurisdiction, but then also has better electricity rates, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, just that sheer economic sort of incentive. And we can see it currently play out today. You see miners jumping into, say, Texas and other jurisdictions, moving out of, say, China, for instance, into Kazakhstan and other sort of friendly jurisdictions throughout the world itself. Does it centralize things? Possibly, but it does open up a door to more economic sort of ties, because if you have some jurisdiction that is offering cleaner energy, for instance, which probably could be in turn cheaper, you see people taking up that opportunity to sort of arbitrage that power cost.
So it'll be a scary future ahead of us.
At the end of the day, we do end up having an issue where it's pretty much the power companies that control all of the mining. It's already happening in Texas with Iris Energy and stuff like that. Eventually, that's what you end up with, is you end up with the power companies themselves mining and pricing everybody out, because they can just give themselves big benefits like they do in Texas right now, where if you're a large miner, you can essentially turn off and get paid $9 million for a month, but they take that $9 million that they're paying the miner for turning off and they're charging it to all the residents and the small miners like myself. So this is what you end up with. And I think it's inevitable. And I do think it's a centralization problem. And I think it'll be centralized underneath the control of the power companies. And I'm not so sure that there's a way out of that. I think at the end of the day, that's probably what we're looking at. I know that seems kind of dark and gloomy, but that's kind of what it looks like.
Especially when government takes the stranglehold, right?
Yeah, but
and then one jurisdiction,
the US, right,
follows the other jurisdiction.
No, because if Canada has a power company that decides to mine Bitcoin, they're going to be able to outcompete every single person that tries to do it.
Right. Until they follow their big brother. And then it
eventually
a ripple
goes
effect.
to like a centralization area where, so unfortunately, blind run, this seems like a doomsday thing where it's like, all right, well, we're within the next 10 years, everyone's going to be priced out, and there's not going to be any basically proof of work, because all
we'll go back to Silk Road,
except for like North Korea are going to be except for North Korea are going to be able to mine.
I mean, I think it does come down to an algorithm that's less selfish and less scalable. And I think like an example of that now, not perfect, is something like Monero, meaning it's a lot less scalable. The profit margins are super low, but everybody gets to participate within the network. And I think eventually that's what it has to come down to. It's like it literally has to get back to one CPU, one vote, which is Satoshi's original vision.
Yeah, Satoshi also forecasted. He also forecasted zombie farms, which is what we saw immediately after RandomX was launched, and all of us predicted it too. Botnets are like Monero is the botnet, maker's best friend, and it always has been, right? Like all the CPU mineable coins. So like the zombie farms that Satoshi completely like did the game theory on, like completely forecasted, saw that it was a real risk and real possibility. Like we can go there. Nothing has the same decentralization profile of GPUs in terms of retail having the same opportunity economically to have exposure to it. But while I agree with Ryan on that, like one potential dark vision of the future, like doomer outlook of the future, I think there is another parallel possibility, and that is that with a lot of the stranded energy, the stranded carbon, basically essentially like the methane on-site power generation, there is an opportunity for a cottage industry to pop up for co-location. There is a case for co-location, and I think it might come from the grassroots also. Like, I tease Red Panda Mining about this. I think I've teased sonofatech about it also, like in some of the back channels, where it's like during this next bear market, this is y'all's opportunity to say, you know what, I got the stuff that isn't profitable, but I've got some attention. Why don't I go set up a co-location facility on site at a natural, like at a gas flaring operation, or at a stranded hydro, because there's plenty of that too, right? There's gigawatts of stranded hydro. So I think there is an opportunity for us to maintain proof of work, but it's going to take a lot of coordination, right? Like, and you're going to have to hope that the people who go from being small to mid-scale participants, that as they scale up and they deal with the economic realities and the business realities of a scaling business, that they don't decide to like turn evil, right? Like the other people that ran the middle layer of infrastructure before, right? And like how sonofatech's saying now, and they don't fall victim, right, to the siren call of government subsidies and all the other horseshit that's pulling their attention away from the grassroots movement. So that's a risk still, but I think there's an opportunity, and it's an equal size on both sides of that potential outcome.
So here's a statement, my last statement of the night, just because nobody's actually spoke of this and you guys all made fun of me for it at the very start of the night. I think that proof of work still has its place, but the efficiencies need to be made in the technology. So yes, everybody made fun of Chia as like whatever you want to call it. But if we can find a technology that can run the entire blockchain at the same speeds as GPUs at 1/1000th of the power, so whether it's a hard drive or whether we find this new SSD that can run the entire blockchain and transactions on everybody's laptop, that technology will come out. And I think that's what's inevitable. I think the future of blockchain technology and transactions and proof of work kind of decentralization is going to come out in a new fashion that we may not have thought of now, whether it be hard drives or whether it be USB or whatever. Doesn't matter. I think that GPU mining may be going out and ASIC mining may be going out because it's just too power hungry. But we can still run the blockchain and we can still run DeFi and we can still run all that shit. We just need to figure out how to make it more efficient on the technology that we have available. And that's what I think is the future, which is why I keep shilling Chia, because it is running the blockchain. People just are not paying attention to it right now.
Are you talking about Chia, the hard drive?
Yeah, the proof of
storage
in time.
It's one of the things.
I have like 270 terabytes. Sorry.
It's not about profit. It's about functionality. It's not about profit. It's about running the blockchain.
I make like $3 a day.
It doesn't matter about profit.
I still support it.
I'm just saying it's about the technology and where if we can run the entire Bitcoin network on Chia.
Educate us on where it's going, if you don't mind.
It's form factor. You're talking about form factor, right? So a new form factor device, maybe a small little NUC has the capability or hardware within it, ASIC type device, but smaller, like an iPolo size miner that can run the entire blockchain and process transactions more efficiently with less power draw. So the king of mining is efficiency in my eyes. It's not about pushing your hardware as hard as you can and getting the highest hash rate. It's about how efficiently you can hash. Until those technologies come out, unfortunately, you use power hungry components. And unfortunately, the NVIDIA getting even more power hungry. Next generation is going to be even more power hungry.
Just like hard drives. If you're looking at Chia as like a hard drive perspective, yeah, sure. Right now, you might be right, but I mean, that it's nothing.
It's all economies of scale, though.
And it's not going to happen in the next 2 years. Your hard
like you
drives
guys are missing all that. I'm sorry. I just like this is a little frustrating. It's all economies of scale. Given the investment, even if you have Chia, somebody will invest into it to where it's wasting energy at some given point. It's literally the economies of scale problem. It doesn't matter what.
You gotta make the chips. You gotta make the fucking thing.
Well, the narrative changed with the Chia core devs too. Like, the narrative totally changed where they finally came out and admitted after they were gracious enough to let all y'all buy all new hardware, scale up all your hard drives and your SSDs and shit. Then they finally came out and said, "Oh no, it's for stranded storage on data centers." Oh, that's what we meant the whole time.
Enterprise.
Right.
I don't think we'll ever see that vision that custom computing was mentioning. Like, if everything gets more efficient, so more people will get on it and it will become less efficient. At the end of the day, we'll end up using more power. So
that's what somebody talking about.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just look up economies of scale and study that, and that explains that. I mean, that's the problem with. I mean, that's literally the problem with humanity wrapped up all into a ball. Like, this is where we come into an issue.
We always take
you want to make battery powered fucking cars. You know how much pollution that costs to make a battery powered car? right now.
Like, I don't want to go back to
Look
the
at it.
topic of the power, but like that's like we said, power is not the problem here. Like we can use power. There is extra power in the world. It's just that prices all around the world are kind of tough.
Well, it doesn't help when there's a war going on.
No,
That's
that.
But the energy
There's
production here
always
in
going
the
to be a
United
war.
States. But the energy production here in the United States has nothing to do with energy production in Ukraine or in Russia. How is their market affecting the available power available here? We're not sending it across the water. It kind of shorts out in the water. I'm just saying.
You know what? Believe it or not,
Actually,
a lot of
we do send energy across the ocean. Just
yeah,
Yes, Canada is sending
just literally
hydrogen to
Yeah,
Germany.
the longer the run, the lower the efficiency, though. That's why it's not. That's why you don't have the majority power run under in underwater power lines. But like, yeah, Serpent, I had a question, a question for later on. If we can queue it up in a minute, so we get off this
let's
topic.
queue it up now. I want to wrap up the stream. I like you guys, but I'm getting tired.
quick question. Anybody planning, post merge, is anybody planning to run like DApp node, any kind of self-hosted full node solution to maybe run their own validators that you're willing to talk about?
No.
Like Ethereum validator?
Yeah, I'm running my own
I thought
nodes.
about it.
Own node infrastructure, I think, helps you survive because you have a better likelihood of hitting a block, which means that you're going to have an advantage over everybody else that's being lazy and not building nodes.
Hey, recommendations for the retail
small.
guy. Yeah, sorry for the interruption there. Recommendation for the retail guy. DApp node was something that I saw was accessible, but accessibility normally means a decrease in functionality and granularity of control. So I have no doubt that Blind Run is doing this from scratch based on your expertise. Like, you got the skill set, man. You got the background. What would you recommend for people that are retail that previously were just like throwing a couple gaming rigs at mining and maybe want to do this now? Maybe they have enough ETH between them and friends.
They need to learn. I'm sorry. Like, at this point, it's all about education. We're in the middle of a bear market. Times are tough. You got to sit down and do the work.
Damn.
And if you're not going to do the work,
baby.
I don't really have any sympathy. I'm sorry.
Open your ass a book.
Okay, so basically become a DevOps specialist. Noted.
Got it.
That
Got
means
it.
like if you're gonna play, you got to play. Like, that's where it's at right now.
He don't sugarcoat shit.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay, is anybody else
moonshine?
looking at running DApp node or anything that is like a self-hosted solution that is meant to simplify it? Because I know, for example, what is it? Jameson that's what he's running is DApp node, and I mean he ran the ETH Core developer meetups every week for years, so he seems to think that's good enough. But
I'm not familiar with DApp node, so is that going to run locally on your local network or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be a local node.
And so it pulls in. Is it just like pulling a Docker image or something along those lines, or what?
yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a simplified way of pulling it, but then you're basically at the mercy of whoever has
The maintainers, yeah. So for the DApp node maintained it, yeah, they're because they have multiple packages too, so they're letting you pull testnet, Docker images, and I think they like it's one click like Avalanche install if you want, all kinds of other stuff that they offer. But Jameson is using it, so I'm like, maybe it's a solid recommendation.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm always worried about that stuff of like somebody just injecting something where eventually my entire wallet's drained and I'm fucked.
They seem to have a track record too, but I mean that can be
I don't know. I haven't heard of it yet. I can look at it. Oh well, and then what's the potential man-in-the-middle attacks there too if you're pulling?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't. That's why I'm asking. I'm asking the group in case somebody else has personal experience with it. Because Jameson seems like he's sold on it. He's run it for months, and me, before I commit hardware to it, I'd rather like have some of those questions answered. But I'll take a recommendation from somebody I trust over just documentation alone.
Yeah,
I was gonna look into it. So if I bump in anything, I'll hit you up, Seth. Quick question. I know some of the pools left, but do we think Ergo Flux and Raven pools will be able to handle the extra hash coming their way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hash, yes. Profitably, no.
I saw somebody shaking their head.
Yeah.
Who was shaking
The
their head?
pool The pools
That's such a
themselves,
minor-
yes.
A minor amount of CPU power. That's not much.
Poolside might not be able to. I mean, maybe CW knows better than me or another pool op, but when I used to run pools, there's definitely a correlation between system resource requirements and the amount of hash rate that's coming in through the pool. It is dependent on architecture to a certain extent, but I mean, there's definitely risk of some pools suffering here and going down. The big ones, like 2 miners, etc., no issues, right? I'm not foreseeing anything there. But some with smaller infrastructures that aren't ready for this, there's definitely could be issues. Like and look, I love GetBlock, but we've seen the issues they've had in the past. If they get a huge influx, they went from, I think, like 100 miners at one point to like 1,000. Tons of issues, tons of API issues, front end issues, back end issues. Like if it's a smaller pool, yes, it is going to affect it. There is a ton of hash rate coming off of ETH, and the ones that already have Ethereum, right? So 2 miners, etc., I think are going to be fine because their front ends are ready for that sort of thing, all that sort of stuff, right? But at the same time, maybe their node infrastructure isn't robust enough on the back end for some of the smaller coins too. I'd have to talk to one of them, but no, there's definitely issues for this going down, pools going down.
Some of them, but those are the smaller pools, I would imagine.
Yeah.
If you look at say mining pool stats, a number of the big players are across the board on these other or considered altcoins. You can call Ergo an altcoin, I guess. It's a good point actually bringing up GetBlock, because at the time when it was basically, I think it was the hash rate migration. So that was a good sort of playing field for that one. And it did highlight a number of problems that they had in regards to sort of the infrastructure and redundancy that they had set up. So for the most part, I've spoken to those guys leading up to this, and they have put a number of contingencies in place. But to the actual scale of hash rate that's coming over, when and how quickly that happens, that's only time will tell. And I think that's the biggest thing in regards to this whole sort of scenario. And it's just time that I'll sort of watch everything sort of play out here.
Well, we're going to find out next week. We're going to find out next week.
26 terahash right now, and you're probably going to receive about a couple hundred terahash. Just FYI, I'm only.
It's all happening next week.
Because I'm gonna jump right now. Sorry. I mean, I was gonna do an Irish goodbye and just like go grab a pack of smokes. But no, guys, it's been a pleasure. Just needed to say it while we're all face to face. It's always fun, and you guys are literally my heroes. Seriously, like what we do here matters, and you guys contribute in a meaningful way. So appreciate the time.
You matter.
Yeah, I just want to thank
Thanks
for putting this together, man. Serpent, like this was. I know you got to go, so.